Chapter 502. Chen Ong rolled up the celestial demon painting, turned into a ray of light, and flew to the sea of the nearby islands. His killing spree on White Rock Island had alarmed many cultivator clans in the nearby island. The living souls that Chen Ong wanted needed to be at the level of Ein's soul. Now that the wandering cultivators on the islands were all hiding like turtles, it was quite troublesome for Chen Ong to find them one by one. Heavenly Novel 2. Immediately, evil thoughts rose in his heart. He decided to go all out and catch them all in one go. He thought to himself, instead of troubling me to find them, why don't I trick them into coming to me themselves? It's been a long time since I've been an old grandpa delivering treasures to someone's doorstep. I guess they're not out of practice yet. Why don't I be kind and leave them a treasure trove so that their whole family can come and find it, and it'll be convenient for me to wipe them out. Secondly, I can screen those who are not fated to die, and give them a chance to live. If they don't repent, they deserve to die. When Chen Ong had calculated to this point, he found a desolate reef and unfolded the 9 heavens and 9 earths form and formless celestial demon painting. A magnificent scene of the celestial palace appeared, and he threw it into the sea. It was like a celestial mansion in the sea. He opened up another 3 passages. He held a jade key of a celestial mansion that was transformed by a Ein demon and threw out a formless celestial demon. It shook its body and turned into an old man who was on the verge of death. Then, it flew shakily towards a big island nearby. He manipulated the demon god and pretended to be fleeing for his life. Although the movement of the light wasn't huge, it was still conspicuous. He flew into the air and turned around to land on the beach. He pretended to be on the verge of death as he adjusted his breathing. As expected, the island was filled with the eyes and ears of the cultivator clans. Soon, a fisherman brought 2 young men to the island. When Chen Ong saw them, he pretended to struggle and said, "Fellow Taoist, please save my life and give me a life-saving spirit pill. Gu Hongzi will reward you handsomely." The 2 young men had red lips and white teeth. They were the disciples of the Lu clan. The one in front and the one behind him looked at each other and suddenly went up to greet them enthusiastically. "No matter what, we are celestial cultivators, it's only right for us to help each other." As he was about to take out the pill, the other person pretended to stop him. "This person is of unknown origin, how dare you save him?" Chen Ong saw that the 2 of them were putting on an act, but the other person pretended to hold him back. "This person's background is unknown, how dare you save him?" He snickered in his heart. One is the good guy, and the other is the good guy. Both of them are full of schemes without a teacher. Do they think I'm a country bumpkin who came out of the deep mountains and forests and cultivated to the point that my brain is only left with a one-track mind? Do you think I'm a country bumpkin and a country bumpkin? As expected, the good guy and the bad guy quarreled. Their words were full of concern for the Gu Hongzi that Chen Ong placed his hopes on, and they wanted to see who was better at acting. Chen Ong played a country bumpkin rogue cultivator who was secretly moved and a little wary. Finding the right time, Chen Ong interrupted the quarrel. "I'm not a bad guy. I'm a rogue cultivator invited by the White Crag Elder for his birthday banquet. Because of the birth of an immortal residence near White Crag Island, the jade key to open the door fell into the hands of the White Crag Elder's grandson, Lu Guan. Many guests fought for it and countless people died. A heterodox master sealed the entire hall with a magic weapon, killing countless people. I only managed to escape by relying on a magic weapon." The tragedy on White Crag Island had long been known by everyone nearby, but the only person who witnessed Chen Ang's murder was the Lord of 5 Obsessions. The rest of the servants only knew that the entire Lu family was dead, but they did not know that there was an insider involved. Later on, the Lord of 5 Obsessions sealed the entire island, so there was no flaw in Chen Ang's story. The eyes of the 2 youths from the Lu family had already lit up when they heard about the birth of the immortal residence. How could they still have time to think about the flaw in the story? The one who played the bad guy said angrily, "Third brother, do you know that this jade divine pill is something that second aunt lent to you to save your life? If you lose it, I'll see how you're going to explain yourself." The one who played the good guy sighed, and insisted on giving this extremely precious pill to Chen Ong to heal his injuries. They pushed and shoved for a while, and when they felt that the time was right, the pale-faced young man shouted, "You Taoist, you said that you would reward me handsomely, but I, Zhuge Ge, have given you a life-saving pill. How are you going to repay me?" With a thought from Chen Ong, the god of appearance, Gu Hongzi, put on a troubled expression and said, "It's not that I'm heartless, but that person was too cruel. In order to escape, I had to give up all my treasures and self-destruct one of my best treasures to escape. Now that I'm empty, I really don't have anything to repay the two of you." As if he saw the pale-faced youth sneer, he pretended not to see the ugly expression of the one who played the good guy. He gritted his teeth and said, "But I still have a treasure with me. It's the jade key to the immortal residence that many cultivators fought over during the birthday banquet. It's enough to exchange for countless treasures." Many of the heretical demons on the island had been eliminated by a passing expert, so there was no longer any danger. "When I recover, I'll bring the two of you to explore the immortal residence, and you can choose any treasure you want. However, you must not touch the treasure of the immortal residence, the sea-calming divine metal treasure. This is the treasure that the senior immortals used to suppress the volcano at the bottom of the sea. Although it's the most precious treasure, once it's taken out, everything within 1,000 miles will be turned into a sea of fire. It's a great sin, so you must swear not to covet this treasure." Chen Ong took out a jade talisman and showed it to the two of them as he exhorted repeatedly. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Then they raised their hands and swore an oath, "If I touch this treasure, let my entire family die," and so on and so forth. After the two of them got information from Chen Ong about the location of the immortal abode, they pretended that they were going to deliver the pills to Gu Hongzi, while one of them secretly raised his flying sword and killed Gu Hongzi, while he was distracted by the pills. He happily took the jade key to the immortal mansion and went to report the good news to his elders. Chen Ong lied to them that the immortal mansion had a total of 3 layers. The outermost layer could be entered by everyone, but only the servants and attendants could come and go. The second layer was more important. There was a special layer of restriction in the herb fields, palaces, and other places. Without the permission of the owner of the immortal residence, those who were above the level of a rogue immortal could not enter. The most important treasures, the place to concoct pills, and the bedroom of the owner of the immortal residence could only be entered by those who were below the level of Yin spirit. The two of them were overjoyed when they learned about this. This way, the elders of their families would not have to force them to enter the immortal residence. Their cultivation would be restricted to below the level of Yin spirit, and the treasures would not belong to them. Moreover, they thought that they had mastered many secrets of the immortal residence. After they left, Chen Ong waved his hand, and Gu Hongzi turned into a skeleton and flew into the celestial demon painting dozens of miles away. When the people on the island found out that Gu Hongzi's body was missing, they would not raise their guard and act cautiously. They would only become more anxious and worried that someone else would snatch the immortal residence before them. With this, Chen Ong could rest assured and headed straight for the Eye of the South Sea. Chapter 503. Chen Ong calculated silently. With the help of the blood deity hidden in the bodies of the two youths, the cultivation families in the archipelago would definitely be wiped out. Chen Ong had also set up many tests in the immortal abode, making sure that the people who came would refine themselves into faceless heavenly demons and provide their souls to increase the power of the celestial demon painting. Heavenly novel too. Given the arrogant idiots on the archipelago, the celestial demon painting would wrap their newly refined faceless heavenly demon corpses and fly back to Chen Ong after dozens of days, completely refining the 108 faceless celestial demon paintings. After further calculation, he found that all of them were indeed surrounded by murderous tribulations and were shrouded in bad luck, looking like they were about to die. The appearance of the immortal abode and the treasures left behind by the seniors, this world is really not right. Everyone wants to reap without sowing. Fortunately, I'm here to correct them. I'll let these bumpkins see the dark side of the world, and let them know that fortune and misfortune are interdependent, and that hard work is the most practical way of life. They'll stop thinking about digging for treasures, robbing graves, and destroying ruins. Do you think my treasures are that easy to dig? Just leave your lives behind and offer your souls and bodies to me so that you can be reborn as soon as possible. There's not enough time this time, so I'll make a short-term plan to deceive a few overseas bumpkins. When I make a big one in the future, I'll trap all the unorthodox mystic door in Middle-earth. Then I'll show off my educational method. Chun-Ong shifted using the Devil Light escape art. The escape light was really extraordinary, and it only took him a moment to return to the eye of the South Sea. Now, there were already some righteous people hiding on the nearby deserted islands, and there were also the young man of Mount Tianqian and the 7 friends of Mount Li secretly taking care of them. It seemed peaceful, but it was actually filled with murderous intent. Even in the eye of the sea, there were several powerful restrictive spells. There were also some powerful restrictive spells on the 10,000-year-old frigid ice essence sealed by Chun-Ong himself. When the celestial child with the red staff returned to replenish the restrictive spells, he pretended not to know. This was because Chun-Ang's hidden tricks were a level higher. Whether it was his true body in the frigid ice essence or the 9-turn Yellow River formation hidden in the eye of the sea, he didn't need to worry about their trick. However, his main target was not these people. Otherwise, he could easily make them suffer a great loss. Seeing that Chun-Ong was covered in blood, one could tell that he was not a good person. He did not know what the connoisseurs of the mystic door and the mighty people from overseas were planning, so they did not act rashly. However, there were some rogue cultivators of the unorthodox sects who were hiding in the shadows. They admired the righteous path and usually stood upright. Chun-Ong did not care about them and directly launched the Blood River Formation on the 2 deserted suburbs. The Great Blood River Formation originated from the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation and was one of the transformations of the true water of the Blood Sea. However, later on, Chun-Ong devoutly comprehended many of the mysteries of the Een Manners River Styx and established this great formation. Its might was even more formidable than the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation, so he wasn't afraid of being seen through by others. This method was almost equivalent to the true inheritance of the Azura Devil Path. No one would believe that it was the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation. The 800 miles of Blood River took root in the 2 deserted suburbs and easily covered the nearby sea area, cutting off the path to the sea eye. Chun-Ong then released 2 blood-colored sword lights and hid them in the Blood River. As expected, there was someone who came to investigate that day. He was slashed by Yuan-Tu and Avicii and almost died. It was the young man from Heavenly Sky Mountain who saved him. Every day, he communicated with the Blood Sea and absorbed the true water of the Blood River to increase the power of the Great Formation. He practiced the techniques of the Devil Path and perfected the Devil Light, Blood Flame, Golden Knife, Fiend God, and many other techniques of the mystic Devil Orthodox sect. He took a step further and refined the Blood God's clone, refining it from a thick blood shadow to a faint bloody light. It was extremely powerful. Then, he gathered the mysterious Een Chi from underground and used the innate Tai fire to refine a pure white fire power. He threw it into the Blood God's primordial spirit and refined it into a 3-inch tall golden cicada with eyebrows and eyes. Then, he used the mysterious Een Chi to suppress the techniques of the Devil Path and refined it into a 1-foot-tall black gourd. He threw the Tai fire primordial spirit flying knife into it to nourish. When the technique was cast, a golden light would freeze the enemy's primordial spirit. With a turn of the gourd, the golden cicada flying knife would fly out and cut the enemy's primordial spirit and put it into the gourd. It was a technique of the devil path that Chun-Ong created by imitating the immortal slaying flying knife. It was called the mysterious En-25 soul slaying knife. After dozens of days of preparation, only then did the people of the heterodox path and the young people of the orthodox path gather in the nearby sea area. The number of cultivators became more and more prosperous. Chun-Ong still pretended to attack the prohibition for half a day and cultivated the Blood River Formation for half a day. It was unknown if it was because of his fierce reputation, but the nearby demonic path and heterodox path would rather deal with the orthodox path than come to him. On this day, Chun-Ong was using the body of the Sky Demon to practice the wonderful form of the Sky Demon in the Blood River Formation. Endless demonic voices and shadows triggered the demons in the cultivators' hearts. For the past few days, he had already tempted several people with weak willpower to enter the Blood River Formation. They turned into flying zombies and white skeletal demons in the Blood River. Other than his fierce reputation, it also made the demons of the heterodox path stay further away from him. For the past 2 days, no one dared to go near him, so there should have been no change. However, today was different. Just after noon, there was an object wrapped in blood light flying towards the Blood River Formation. When it flew near a deserted island, there were people who wanted to stop it. A large grayish-green net was secretly spread out by someone to block that thing, but unexpectedly, that thing stopped and revealed its true form. It was a roll of sleeves, and when it suddenly unfolded, it was hundreds of feet wide. A large ferocious hand stretched out from it and grabbed 2 people from the void, dragging them into the scroll. Not long after, a bone-chilling sound of grinding teeth could be heard. When it flew again, no one dared to stop it. It flew to the sky above the Blood River Formation. With a shake of the formation, it fell into Chun-Ang's hands. It was the 9 heavens and 10 earths form and formless celestial demon painting. However, when Chun-Ong opened it, the 95 different forms of gods and demons were no longer there. There was only an infinitely huge god and demon, with heaven above its head and hell below its feet, holding an axe that could split the heavens and earth. Chun-Ong looked at the changes in the fiend god diagram and said with a smile, after supplementing the 13 fiend gods with faceless forms, the primordial fiend god formed by the 108 formless fiend gods, Great Fiend God Pangu has an outline. In the future, I will replenish and refine it. It is not something that can be done in a short period of time. Since he wanted to test it out, he casually threw the celestial demon painting into the Blood River Formation. Endless blood clouds gathered and the faint image of great demon god Pangu stood in the Blood River. He raised his axe and chopped with all his might. Instantly, the Blood River opened up an endless world, born and destroyed like the sands of the universe. The 9 heavens palace appeared above the great demon god's head. Countless beautiful goddesses, celestial voices, golden-armored deities, celestial soldiers and generals appeared, stepping on the 10 levels of hell. There were also countless demons and demons roaring with all their might. Then, the great demon god disintegrated into the images of 108 gods and demons. Each and every one of them was ferocious and terrifying, hiding in the Blood River. The commotion this time was 10 times bigger than before. Confused by the celestial voices of the goddesses, a few more people rushed out from tens of miles away and entered the Blood River Formation. The celestial palaces and hell turned upside down and disappeared among the endless demons and demons. Chapter 504. Blood clouds churned in the eye of the sea, and within the abyss, there were many demonic shadows. White clouds and purple gas rose from the eye of the sea, holding up a celestial palace high up in the sky. Indistinctly, one could see the golden-armored immortal general and the goddess in white moving about. The Emperor of Heaven was sitting high up in the main hall of the celestial palace. The god of thunder, the goddess of lightning, and the 6 dragons' chariot were circling in the Milky Way outside the palace. There were a total of 36 Miao Xiang deities guarding the celestial palace. What a magnificent celestial scene! However, this scene did not make the surrounding cultivators envious. Instead, they were in awe and fear. Just now, they saw with their own eyes that the few unorthodox sects from overseas were bewitched by the celestial music and threw themselves into the celestial palace. In the blink of an eye, the heaven and earth turned upside down, and the celestial palace turned into a scene of hell. The golden-armored immortal general and the goddess in white turned into the original form of the flying zombie ghost mother, and the 36 deities also became ferocious. The celestial form, benevolent form, deity form, Buddha form, and auspicious beast form reappeared, revealing the white bone form, dragon and snake form, malicious ghost form, devil form, and evil beast form. The celestial emperor in the celestial palace transformed into a half-dragon and half-snake, with scales and horns on his body, like an abyss dragon. The god of thunder and mother of lightning were shockingly the thunder demon and lightning demon with a body covered in white bones and wreathed in phosphorescence. The bewitched cultivators who threw themselves into the celestial palace could not last more than 2 seconds before their true selves were erased by the sky demons. Their spiritual intelligence was diminished, and their living bodies stiffened to death. Flesh scales and bone spikes grew out of them, and they turned into flying yikshaws. As for their souls that had been cultivated for years, they were hooked out by the gods and demons in the blink of an eye. Under the washing of the blood river, they turned into a streak of blood light and were soon refined into the celestial demon diagram, making the faces of the few formless gods and demons clearer. Chen Ong sat in the eye of the blood river formation, communicating with the underworld blood sea in the void. Wisps of blood sea chi turned into a 12th-grade blood lotus that supported him. As the blood river formation was activated by Chen Ong, it absorbed the true water of blood sea in the river Styx blood sea, purifying the formless gods and demons in the diagram of gods and demons, getting rid of their stubborn thoughts, and slowly shaping their pure and stubborn demonic thoughts according to what he learned when he was refining the supreme demon body. The changes involved had already broken away from the small path of refining gods and demons of the mystic Orthodox sect. Instead, it was based on the changes of the sky demon, causing nameless troubles and becoming the creation sky demon great Tao that was compatible with Chun Ang's Tao of creation. The 72 skeletal zombies were reborn from the dead. Their bodies slowly broke away from the puppets that were refined by the demonic path's magic and turned into real living beings. On the other hand, the 36 formless gods and demons were cleansed of their resentment and hostility. They lost their yin nature and turned into pure yang. A bit of blood flame burned from the depths of their demonic consciousness and gave birth to a bit of their true spirit. It got rid of the indestructible, pure and stubborn Vajra thoughts. The remaining yin chi and hostility turned into countless distracting thoughts and demons. They were born and extinguished, becoming the root of the 36 gods and demons in the celestial demon diagram. The endless yin devils were different from the 36 formless gods and demons. These demonic thoughts were just seeds of stubbornness. Like the distracting thoughts of humans, they infiltrated one's thoughts and needed the nourishment of distracting thoughts to grow. In the end, they turned into demons and took over one's true self. The 36 formless gods and devils were formed from the 36 most stubborn thoughts of all living beings in the universe. As long as anyone in this world had a stubborn thought, the formless gods and demons on the celestial demon diagram would sense it. Among them, the netherworld dragon was formed from the power of the people. As long as someone had the desire to manipulate others and seek for a higher position, it would sense the demon and increase its power. The thunder demon was nameless anger, the lightning demon was endless resentment, the wealth demon was greed, the moon mother was stubborn love, and the 7 saints of the sky and the 6 desires gods and demons were the stubbornness of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. It wasn't a low-tier magic like the illusion spell or the mid-tier magic of the mystic devil orthodox sect that could confuse others. It was neither thought nor no thought, the upper-tier mystic devil method of great freedom. It would follow the stubbornness of the people and extinguish with birth. It would steal the thoughts of all living beings and become a demon. If this diagram was completed, in the future the sentient beings in this world would have a little obsession in their hearts, and it would trigger the gods and devils in this diagram to descend a bit of devil consciousness, borrowing the sentient being's obsession to grow. When the obsession was gone, it would return to the god and devil diagram and transform into the power of the formless god and devil. The endless demons in the painting would also grow due to the endless thoughts of the living beings. As long as the living beings weren't destroyed, the demons would be endless. This method of using the obsession of all living beings to raise heavenly demons could be said to be terrifying. The power of this treasure would also reach an unimaginable level. Thus, the calamity of this treasure would also be unimaginable. If I insist on refining this diagram, I'm afraid that there will immediately be reincarnations of gods and Buddhas from the spiritual immortal realm to become my tribulation. The cultivation of this realm has already reached a certain level, and those bald donkeys and nuns who are just holding back from ascending will also be overjoyed. They will do everything they can to make things difficult for me, so that they can temper themselves in the devil's tribulation that I cause, transcend all the tribulations, and raise their Buddhahood to the level of Bodhisattva or even Buddha. If you can enlighten me, you will be able to add another world to Buddhism, Venerable Buddha. If they are unfortunate enough to be enlightened by me, they can also become heavenly demons. The trouble and karma involved in this is really unimaginable. To become the master of the hearts of all living beings, to steal the thoughts of all living beings to worship themselves, this kind of method of the devil's path is already close to the orthodox method of Buddhism. It's not like what I did previously when I followed the heavenly Tao and created this world. With the protection of good fortune, the calamities are much lower. Instead, it's a move that goes against the heavens, and the calamities are endless. Chen Ong sighed and said, "It's too troublesome. This Tao isn't my Tao after all. It's not worth wasting so much time on it. Let it be. If the heavens let it succeed, the calamity won't be counted on me." He then gave up on the subsequent methods, leaving only the seed of obsession for it to grow on its own. He then focused most of his energy on the 72 heavenly demons with appearances. He wanted to turn these 72 heavenly demons with appearances into living beings, imitating the form of ferocious beasts. He wanted to become a kind of strange living beings that fit the heavenly Tao and could survive in the river of blood. If they were to multiply, they would become 72 kinds of living beings from beyond the heavens. They were born with magic and could reproduce. Chen Ong had set up 2 great formations in South Sea. The Blood River formation was ferocious, while the celestial demon diagram was terrifying. Even though he didn't have the intention to cultivate the heavenly demons to the level of his Mahasvara demon transformation, he had after all cultivated the foundation. Within a radius of 10,000 miles, all living beings could sense the 36 heavenly demons silently. They nourished their power, and endless demons were born in response to their distracting thoughts. It was unknown how many cultivators were secretly controlled by the heavenly demons. In their muddle-headed state, they threw themselves into the Blood River formation and became the heavenly demons of the celestial demon diagram's nourishment. In just a month's time, the fearsome name of Patriarch River Styx that suppressed South Sea was known by everyone in the 4 seas. Chapter 505. As time passed, the power of the god-demon drawing of the 9 heavens and 10 earths rose to an inexplicable level. It was originally a demonic treasure that Chen Ong casually made, but now it was one of his 3 most powerful enchanted treasures. It had the potential to surpass the golden ship of creation. However, its foundation was still not stable. When it sensed more living beings, It would surpass the golden ship in less than 10 years. One must know that Chun Ong had spent countless heavenly treasures and materials to create the gold-transmuted ship. He had spent a lot of effort, and the celestial demon diagram was something he had casually created. These 108 formless celestial demons weren't anything special, they were just the lives of some unorthodox cultivators. They were worthless like ants, yet they were comparable to the golden ship of creation. Although it was not as powerful as the golden ship of fate, the heavenly thunder that could destroy heaven and earth, the sun god's fire wings that were comparable to the sun, and the mysterious yin and yang primordial magnetic divine light that were the most powerful and destructive means in the universe, it could sneak into people's hearts, scheme, battle, and curse victory. It was even more helpful in improving one's cultivation. Chun Ong believed that if these two treasures were to be chosen by the mighty people in the world, 99% of them would choose the god-demon drawing. Buddhism and diabolism would definitely choose the god-demon drawing. This was because this was a treasure to achieve Taoism. It was entrusted to Chun Ong to open the path of diabolism's Tao of creation. For Buddhism and diabolism, its value was immeasurable. In Chun Ang's hands, only the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation, which was entrusted with the fate of the four seas, could surpass this treasure. Now that the two treasures had set up a formation here, even though the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation only displayed the Blood River Formation, the God-Demon Drawing's 9 Heavens and 10 Earths formation was activated. The two complemented each other, and the Sky Demon and Blood Demon complemented each other. Even though the young man of Tiangon Mountain, the 7 friends of Mount Li, and the poisonous dragon of diabolism were secretly protecting them, and Xianyuan the Great was watching, they did not dare to move. They could tell that this great formation was the most powerful technique of the demonic faction, and it was even more terrifying than the few lost methods of the demonic faction to destroy the world in the past. Only the Amei Yin and Yang dust formation of the righteous faction could contend against it. But now that the formation had been formed, even if the Amei sect came with the Yin and Yang dust formation that was suppressed by the Tai Ching divine talisman, it would be difficult for them to resist without the geographical advantage. Now the only flaw of this formation was that Chun Ang's cultivation level was not even that of an individual immortal. This caused some contempt in the righteous path, and there were countless people from the side sects of the devil path who coveted this formation. They could not wait to kill Chun Ong immediately, seize the formation map, and set up this great formation in their own lair that could be relied on to survive. With the formation eye of Chun Ang's celestial demon diagram, within a radius of 10,000 miles, except for a few old monsters who were faintly at the level of celestial immortals, they were all secretly sensed by the celestial demon diagram and became his eyes and ears. To Chun Ong, their thoughts and secret plans were as clear as the lines on his palm. How could he not laugh? With the help of these two formations, not to mention Chun Ang's supreme celestial demon body, even the idiot green-robed patriarch would have a peerless demonic power here. Moreover, Chun Ang's technique was strengthened to the extent that he regarded many people here as dirt. This made him often rise up and shout, "Fellow Taoism friends, your doom has come, we are fated to meet." Then, he would use the two swords of Yuantu and Avicii to kill the hundreds of cultivators within a radius of 10,000 miles. Fortunately, he knew that this was the delusion caused by the celestial demon body, so he often restrained his thoughts and calmed his murderous intent. Otherwise, with the sword principle of true river Styx, the 10,000 miles would have turned into a killing field. The more I act, the more Master Daozu, the more I look like him. I'm no longer the grassroots team that I used to be. Although I only created it to capture the space of the Master God, it's quite beneficial to use this identity now. It's a great inspiration for my research, so I might as well keep it in the future. In this case, I can't be careless anymore. At least, I can't coat the waterscape sword with a layer of bloodlight and use it as Yuantu and Avicii. This world is frighteningly deep, and there are countless experts. Who knows when an expert will come and see through its true form? There are many hidden dangers, so it's better to sacrifice and refine 2 more flying swords. As he thought of this, Chen Ong took out many precious treasures of innate true gold, such as the essence of 5 metals, Tai primordial essence, and true water of blood river formation. Before he finished preparing the materials, many old monsters in the surroundings couldn't hold back anymore and sent people to test the formation. The one who came first was an unorthodox disciple who had just become a rogue immortal. He didn't even have the mana of the venerable of 5 desires, yet he came to challenge the formation. His tone was unbelievably arrogant. He stood outside the formation and shouted at Chen Ong, "Junior River Styx, since you invited us here to discuss important matters, why are you setting up this evil formation? Why don't you release the formation and let us in? If we let the righteous cultivators take advantage of us, wouldn't we be the sinners of the demonic path?" Initially, Chen Ong didn't want to bother with this ignorant person who wanted to be his master. He wanted to wait until the demon head on the celestial demon diagram slowly erased his true self and turned him into a puppet. However, he didn't expect that the demon head would take his silence as a sign of retreat. He became even more arrogant and started scolding outside. Anger rose in Chen Ang's heart. He controlled the formation to fluctuate, and the river Styx, who was sitting in the celestial demon diagram, opened one of his eyes. He sucked in all the cultivators whose chi was similar to his and whose fate force was vaguely connected to each other and sent them to the gods and demons. He slowly let out a voice from the formation, "Sinners of the demonic path? Do you know what the demonic path is? How dare you talk about the great Tao of the demonic path with me?" The man screamed. With bloodshot eyes, he wanted to charge into the formation to save his family. However, he was not very capable. Before he could enter the formation, he was crushed to death by one of the gods and demons. The cultivators nearby looked at the blood that splattered in midair. Those who were not sober enough suddenly came back to their senses and realized their position. Those who were clamoring to teach Chen Ong a lesson had now shut their mouth. Under the direction of his Sifu, Lord of 5 Evils rose into the air and flew slowly to the edge of Chen Ang's formation. With a loud voice, he said, "My friend, River Styx, you've set up a formation that has trapped those hypocrites from the righteous path. You've shown us the power of the demonic path. However, the restrictive spell set up by Reverend Redstaff is truly extraordinary. My friend, River Styx, has set up this formation for over a month, but he still couldn't save that senior heavenly devil. Clearly, this is not the work of one person. Why don't you open up a path and let us give it a try, lest those hypocrites from the righteous path take advantage of us?" Sitting on the blood lotus, Chen Ong smiled and said, "This formation of mine needs the strength of 49 people to unleash its full power. Otherwise, it can only rely on its instinctive changes. It's more than enough to defend, but not enough to attack. Since my friend is so righteous, why don't you stay in the formation and work together to save that senior heavenly devil? If you have the great Tao to teach us in the future, we'll be worthy of it." Lord of 5 Evils pondered for a moment and said, "It's not impossible. But, if my friend wants to attack us and we're trapped in the formation, we won't be able to do anything to help us." Many malicious thoughts were running through his mind. He wanted to lure Chen Ong out, kill him, occupy the formation, release the heavenly devil, and refine him into a blood god. In the depths of his mind, there was a hidden thought. He wanted to lure his master, Xianyuan the Great, into the formation as well. When he and the heavenly devil were both injured, he would ambush them and refine them into his blood god. Chen Ong used the blood god in his body to peep at his hidden thoughts. He slowly enjoyed it. The many obsessions in the celestial and demon paintings sneaked into his mind and quietly triggered his yin fire. When the desire in his mind was raging, An inner and outer demon would suddenly combine and refine his original self. Unknowingly, he had taken control of his original self. Although his conscious memory was still there, he only treated Chen Ong as his supreme master. Chapter 506. Chen Ong had planted a spy on the side of the evil sections. He also had many backup plans that he had previously released. This meant that there was no way that he would be able to control this side. Even if there were any changes, he would be able to detect it with the backup plan that he had. On the other hand, on the side of the righteous, because the disciples had good temperament and cultivation, even if they had some distracting thoughts, the sky demon on the celestial demon diagram would sense it and not leak any important information. Although they could see the actions on the surface, it was hard to guard against the schemes behind the scenes. As Chen Ong was pondering, he received a letter from the female cultivator, Tan Yun. She asked him to come to the lake island for a chat. The two of them had previously agreed to meet on this desolate reef. However, this reef was occupied by the Blood River formation set up by River Styx. Naturally, they could not meet and could only send a flying sword letter to invite him over. This was because they had previously agreed that when Tan Yun called out Chen Eng's name, the flying sword would find the way. It was the same this time. Chen Ong sensed a faint connection and manipulated the heavenly demon in the formless celestial demon painting to scoop the flying sword from the void. After thinking for a while, he replied to her and put the flying sword back. His Blood River primordial spirit turned from evil to righteous and turned into the mystic doors by Luo primordial spirit baby. He still looked like a young man and came out from the back of the head of the supreme sky demon. He looked at River Styx and smiled. Spiritual light appeared under his feet and he flew over with a thought. The Mystic Door's spiritual light escape technique was one of the fastest escape techniques in the universe. In the boundless universe, it could be reached with a thought. Hence, its speed was even faster than the flying sword letter. The Lake of Trust Island was a stronghold of the righteous. It originally belonged to the South Sea rogue cultivator, Junyozi. It was his cultivation courtyard. He had always admired the righteous and in the future when he reincarnated, he would need to trouble a righteous senior to take him in. Hence, when he heard that the sky demon had appeared in the sea where his courtyard was located, he quickly offered it up and arranged for the righteous seniors to stay. As a result, the original crude Immortal's Cave was naturally no longer suitable. The new talents of the righteous path in the last 50 years used Dao techniques to cut down the bamboo trees on the island and built a few rather elegant small buildings on the island, inviting the seniors who came from afar to stay. In order to guard against the sneak attacks of the heterodox demons, they had also set up many powerful prohibitions on the island. Naturally, this was not a problem for Chen Ong. It was just that he was invited, so he could not barge in and embarrass the host. He waited for a while and waited for the flying sword to send the message in. Only then did he capture a thread of his voice and sent it into the Lake of Trust Island, following that thread of aura down. Just as Tan Yun was retrieving her flying sword, she suddenly heard Chen Eng's voice in her ear. "Fellow Taoist Tan, I was impatient after receiving your letter, so I took the liberty to visit you. Please forgive me." At this time, Tan Yun was talking about Dao with a female cultivator of the Mystic Door, whom she had just met. When the female cultivator saw that Tan Yun had received the flying sword message, she was surprised. After a while, she suddenly froze and then beamed with joy. A trace of excitement flashed in her eyes. She felt strange and couldn't help but whisper, "Sister Tan? Sister Tan?" Tan Yun was startled and said happily, "Sister Jing, do you still remember that Chun Daoyu I told you about?" Opposite her was the daughter of the Origin Tortoise Hall's itinerant celestial Yi Zhou of the South Sea. She was the female infant goddess Yi Jing who would later enter the Amei sect. She naturally wouldn't be unaware of such a huge incident in the South Sea, so she went to the East Sea to visit the three elders of the Amei sect. Coincidentally, she met Tan Yun who came to seek help. They became good friends and came to the South Sea together to avert this calamity. When she heard what Tan Yun said, she actually didn't think much of it. She was a local ghost in the South Sea, so she had heard of all the slightly famous itinerant celestials. Even the old monsters of the previous generation who hadn't appeared for a long time. Her father Izhou was afraid that she would be ignorant and cause a huge disaster, so he explained it to her in detail. With such knowledge, who in the Central Plains could escape her knowledge? Even though Tan Yun mentioned Chen Ong many times, her words were full of praises, and her tone even vaguely implied that he was the #1 person in the younger generation of the Four Seas. She didn't refute because she cared about her good friend's face. However, in her heart, she only thought of Chen Ong as someone who deceived the world and was merely a person from the unorthodox school with some mana. She thought, this person could deceive Sister Tan to the point of being head over heels for him, so he must be someone with a sharp tongue. Even though Sister Tan rebuilt her foundation and changed her mana to the Ice Soul Divine Light, and even though she's just an unorthodox school, she's still a first-rate junior with a bright future. However, her experience is still lacking, and her vision is still the same as when she was in the unorthodox school. She actually can't tell the difference between the dragon and the snake. However, I have to remind her secretly. She immediately agreed. Is it that Chen Daoyu with extraordinary mana that sister mentioned? Tan Yun didn't hear the coldness in her words and continued to say passionately, yes. I just sent him a letter with my flying sword and arranged to meet at Lake Trust Island. I didn't expect to hear that he's already outside the island the moment I received the letter, so I'm going to welcome him. Sister can wait for me here for a while. Yi Jing looked down on her even more when she heard this and thought, he came so quickly, so it's obvious that he's not far from Lake Trust Island. However, he has no referral and can't even enter the island. What kind of mana could such a person have? I have to remind Sister to be careful and not be tricked by that person again. With this thought, she also stood up and said, I've long heard of that Chen Daoyu's name, but I've never seen him before. I'm really curious here, may Sister introduce me to him? Her tone implied that Chen Eng's name was only heard from Tan Yun, which was illogical. However, Tan Yun had seen Chen Eng's abilities and didn't think of this. She still agreed passionately, causing Yi Jing to sigh inwardly and become even more determined to expose Chen Ong. He called out to his elder brother, Yi Cheng, and went to welcome Chen Ong. Chen Ong had been waiting at the entrance of the island for a while. Tan Yun saw that he looked younger than she remembered and couldn't help but ask with concern, Chen Daoyu, what's wrong? On the other hand, Yi Jing and Yi Ching, the two siblings, saw Chen Eng's sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, good looks, and the age of 13 or 14, their eyes lit up. Upon closer inspection, he really had an extraordinary celestial bone structure. Even though they dispelled a layer of disdain, they didn't believe Tan Yun's words even more. They could tell that even if this wasn't Chen Eng's real age, he shouldn't be too old. Even though there were many good and evil people like Child of Bliss and Child of the Sand Deity, they wouldn't have such a lively air between their brows. This was because young people were lively, while old people were calm. This was a natural principle, a temperament that came from the spirit. It wasn't something that could be disguised with supernatural power. Forcefully imitating it would only hinder one's state of mind, which was detrimental to one's Tao. When I first came here, because the outskirts of the seas I were occupied by river Styx, and he even used the Blood River formation to seal the sea's eye, I was indignant and fought with him for a few rounds. I was at a disadvantage, and my physical body was trapped by him and sealed in the sea's eye. I could only travel with my primordial spirit to meet fellow Daoists. Chen Ong didn't mind and explained with a smile. Chapter 507. Yi Jing felt that she had seen through Chen Eng's true colors, so she was no longer courteous and continued, I see. This old demon river Styx's Blood River formation is very powerful. Many people from the righteous and evil sects have tried to explore it, but none of them returned. Chun Daoyu was able to escape with his primordial spirit, so his cultivation base must be extraordinary. It just so happens that this brother of mine wants to gather people to enter the formation again to test it out. May I know where my friend's body is trapped? Are you willing to go with him and rescue him? Her words were not wrong, but there was a hint of sarcasm in her tone. Not only could Chen Ong sense her dissatisfaction with him, but even Tan Yun sensed that something was wrong. Chen Ong only smiled faintly and said, "Old Demon River Styx? Who gave him that name?" Before Yi Jing could answer, Yi Qing interrupted, "So you don't even know about that old demon after fighting him so many times?" He looked up at Chen Ong and sneered, "Old Demon River Styx is very powerful, but we know nothing about him. It's as if he appeared out of nowhere. After we invited Divine Nun Xian Ru to take a look, we found out that he is an ancient demon. He must be a demon who has cultivated for many years and achieved Tao in ancient times. He hid until now, and when he heard that something happened to the heavenly demon, he came out to find a chance to prove his Tao. That's why he's called Old Demon River Styx. I didn't expect that you, Chun Daoyu, wouldn't know about such a small matter after fighting him so many times." Tan Yun understood the meaning behind his words and immediately said anxiously, "You're wrong, fellow Daoyu Yi. That old demon River Styx only hides in the formation and uses it to cause trouble. Chun Daoyu might not have the chance to meet him." When she saw the Yi siblings' indifference, she felt even more indignant and wanted to continue explaining for Chen Ong. Chen Ong only waved his hand lightly and said, "I see. I saw that River Styx only had the stature of a young man, and he was probably about the same age as me. I didn't expect him to be called an old demon. It seems like I'm ignorant and ill-informed." Amused, Yi Tianyun continued, "But my body is sealed at the core of the Ci, the cold spring. That's where River Styx's array formation is strongest. Fellow Taoist Yi, it's best that you don't take the risk." Initially, the Yi siblings did not believe his words. Now, they were certain that Chen Ong was lying. Yi Jing still cared about Tan Yun's face, but Yi Qing did not even look him in the eye. He only snorted lightly, showing his disdain. Naturally, Chen Ong didn't care. To put it bluntly, the Yi siblings were like ants in his eyes. No matter what they thought of them, Chen Ong didn't care. But as a righteous expert, he kindly reminded them, "What kind of tricks do you have? This Blood River array is not to be trifled with. River Styx is an expert in spells and his sword light is the fiercest. Fighting him with his sword is more dangerous than entering the array. From what I know, this array only has 2 simple transformations. There are more powerful ones. If fellow Taoist Yi isn't prepared, you might be in danger." Yi Qing only looked at him from the corner of his eyes and said in disdain, "Do you know the power of my family's evading demon shuttle?" It was still Yi Jing who didn't want to fall out with Tan Yun. She forced herself to restrain herself and explained, "The 9 heavens 10 earths demon-repelling divine shuttle is made by my father from the 1,000-year-old fine iron at the bottom of the sea and ground it with 10,000 years of North Pole black ice. It's shaped like a woven shuttle, but when it's not in use, it's only 98 pieces of 5-colored steel that are similar to willow leaves and only a few inches long. Once it's in use, the willow leaf will be 3 feet long. It will close by itself and wrap around the user without any gap. The user can control it as they please." She emphasized the last few words because she wanted to embarrass the person in front of her. Unexpectedly, Chen Ong did not mind and continued, "I've heard of the fame of the Turtle Palace's Yi Zhou's magic treasure. However, there's another array in the River Styx Blood River Array, the evading demon array of the 9 heavens and 10 earths. It can suppress the universe and form a world of its own. Its power is beyond your imagination. Although the evading demon shuttle is extraordinary, I'm afraid it might not be able to block it." What he said was very appropriate. With the power of the 2 arrays, the Amei Yin Yang dust array might not be as destructive as the evading demon shuttle. Let Yi Zhou say, with the evading demon shuttle in hand, did he have the confidence to break the yin-yang dust array? Needless to say, the younger generation of the Yi siblings. However, Yi Cheng was already impatient. He flicked his sleeves and said, other than the magnetic force, what restriction has the evading demon shuttle been afraid of? In my father's hands, breaking the array of the overseas experts is as easy as drinking water. He has told me all the taboos, there's no need for you to remind me. As for your evading demon array of the 9 heavens and 10 earths, I've never heard of it. Where did you hear about it? As he spoke, he glanced at Chun Ong and sneered, I'm afraid you made it up. Yi Jing did not stop her brother. She was already tired of trying to persuade Tan Yun. This was the last reminder. If Tan Yun still did not come to her senses, she would be hopelessly stupid and not fit to be her friend. Chen Ong tried his best, but the siblings did not listen. Anyway, he had done his part. If they did not repent and turned into the river Styx old demon to deal with them in the array, he did not have to hold back. If Heart like the immortal nun and the 3 fairies of the eastern sea did not come to make trouble, Yi Zhou would have lost one of his sons today. Tan Yun smiled and left. Tan Yun could not persuade her. She looked at Yi Jing awkwardly and thought of the benefits of Chen Ong. She clenched her teeth and chased after her. Yi Ching looked at her back and sighed, Sister has offended your friend today. She lost face like this, I'm afraid. Yi Jing only glanced at Tan Yun's back and said, that's because she did not come to her senses. I thought she was someone who could be cultivated, but I didn't expect her to be so stupid. If that's the case, how would I dare to be friends with her? She gave up her last chance and willingly joined the side of the unorthodox sect. She is not on the same path as us. Although it is a pity that she has the ice spirit divine light as a foundation, it is easy to cultivate mana, but it is hard to set one's mind. With such poor judgment of people, she is not destined. Sigh. In the future, if she still has good fortune, I will take care of her again. The 2 siblings put themselves on a high pedestal. They pretended to casually guide Chen Ong and Tan Yun's futures, greatly satisfying their sense of control. Then, they went to prepare to break the formation. When Chen Ong saw the 2 again, it was already night time. A few outstanding disciples of the righteous path held the demon-repelling shuttle of the 9 heavens and 10 earths and tried to break the formation together. They thought that with the help of the shuttle, even if they could not break the formation, it would not be a problem for them to escape. Therefore, when they left the formation, their morale was high. Yi Ching even looked at Chen Ong meaningfully. He was chatting and laughing with his friends. Beside him were the most outstanding figures of the righteous path's younger generation. They thought that the Blood River formation of River Styx was as easy as walking on flat ground. Since he wanted to test his skills, he released his conveyance light and activated the shuttle. He turned into a golden light and charged into the surging Blood River formation. The conveyance light broke through the outer layer of the blood cloud and entered the Blood River. Chapter 508. Because Lake Trust Island was quite a distance away from the eye of the sea, the view wasn't very clear. Therefore, some righteous Taoists released a rainbow cloud that looked like a red sunset and hung it near the formation set up by River Styx, allowing people to observe the ceremony. Chen Ong brought Tan Yun up this magic treasure. Luckily, the place was spacious enough, it wasn't crowded even with dozens of people standing on it. Tianxiang Novel 2. Most of the people who came were wandering immortals from overseas. There were also some mystic door descendants and old seniors from Middle-earth who came to subdue demons. They were all very confident and smiled as they watched the 9 heavens 10 earths demon avoidance shuttle enter the formation. Someone laughed and said, Yi Ching will definitely be able to win the jackpot for us this time. When Yi Jing saw Chen Ong and Tan Yun, she inched closer and smiled. Chen Daoyu, Sister Tan, you're here too. Chen Ong and Tan Yun could only return the greeting. She then said, It's hard to tell if my brother's fate is good or bad. It's reasonable for Chen Daoyu to want to protect himself. However, I heard that Chen Daoyu had entered this formation before and luckily escaped. I wonder if you can give us some pointers? Her words attracted everyone's attention. From time to time, people would look at her. When they heard the last sentence, a man in a green scholar's robe laughed and said, "Where did this toad come from? How arrogant!" He looked at Chen Ong mockingly and said, "So you're the one who said such ridiculous words? Since you've walked through this formation once, what's the harm in walking through it again? Brother E invited you to come along, but you're making excuses here. I'm ashamed to be in the same line as you." When he finished, he waved his sleeves and brushed away the mist between them. A person behind him frowned and looked at Chen Ong and Tan Yun. After hearing the reprimand of the man in green scholar's robe, he suddenly said, "My colorful cloud pouch is an elegant item, it only carries noblemen seniors. How can a person from a nunnery like you deserve it? Get out of here." Before his voice faded away, he made a hand seal to disperse the colorful clouds under Chen Eng's feet. He deliberately wanted to embarrass Chen Ong. Such actions were simply disdainful of Chen Ong to the extreme. He was also an itinerant immortal, and he saw that Chen Ong was just an ordinary unorthodox disciple. There were dozens of itinerant immortal experts here, and he himself was from a large overseas sect. His father, brothers, and family had more itinerant immortals than ordinary sects, so he really did not think that he needed to take Chen Ong seriously. However, he did not know that the number of loose immortals killed by Chen Eng's sword was much more than all the people here. Even if his entire family was added up, it would not be even a tenth of the souls killed by Chen Eng's sword. Chen Ong summoned the golden ship of fortune and stepped on it. Suddenly, he looked at Yi Jing and sighed, "Since Miss Yi insists on my guidance, then I'll make a small mistake. With all due respect, everyone here will most likely die. That brother Yi will most likely not be able to come back alive. Please be prepared, Miss Yi, lest you cause the death of Mr. Yi's son and daughter in a moment of impulse." Suddenly, he thought of something and said, "Oh, I forgot that fellow Taoist Yi has 2 sons, but Mr. Yi Zhou does not have to worry about his bloodline being cut off." As soon as he said this, Yi Jing could no longer hold it in. Even though she had a good upbringing, she still blushed and scolded, "Thief! How dare you bully my brother?" Then, she took out the demon-slaying moon crossbow and planned to punish Chen Ong. The demon-slaying moon crossbow was shaped like a crossbow barrel, and there were 5 colorless golden pellets hidden in it. There was a spring in the middle, and it could be released and released at will. It could break the demonic fire, demonic smoke, demonic light, and poisonous sand. It was even more powerful when used to kill enemies. Then, Yi Jing raised her hand and a ball of light shot right at Chen Ong. However, Tan Yun was still standing beside her, so she did not hold back at all. Clearly, she was really angry now. The ball of light exploded and hit Chen Ong, but it did not even cause a ripple in the golden light of the golden ship of fortune. Yi Jing was in disbelief, and the green-robed scholar beside her was even more shocked. Chen Ong smiled and pointed at the golden ship he was sitting on. He said calmly, "It's a pity that your mind is not clear. I won't hold it against you for making such a big mistake. Next, I'll just give you a small punishment. If you can take it, then the karma will be over. But if you can't, then I'll just pity you for your years of hard work." When he finished, he did not waste any more words with her. A Tai 5 primordial spirit thunder railgun came out from the golden ship, and the creation divine thunderball in the core accumulated a great force. Then it shot out. Someone at the side shouted, "Fellow Taoist, please show mercy." Suddenly, a spot of Buddha light appeared and protected Yi Jing. The power of the golden ship of fortune's cannon was really not something a human could handle. Even with the protection of the Buddha light, it still hit Yi Jing so hard that she almost fainted. Even though she forced herself to wake up, she still ended up with her internal organs burning, and her corporeal body's tendons and bones broken. Chen-ong looked at the spot where the Buddha light was extinguished, and he said with a smile, "Since the deity Xen-Ru helped, then I'll give her some face." He then sighed at Yi Jing. "I said good words first, but you didn't listen. Now that you hit me with a crossbow, I'll return it with a cannon. Are you satisfied?" Yi Jing was severely injured and speechless, so she could only nod with a defeated expression. Chen-ong then nodded and said, "Then this karma will be over. Otherwise I'll bully the weak." If she was not willing to comply, then Chen-ong could only not give face to Amei and Xien-Ru and give her another celestial slaying godly thunder cannon. What happened to Chen-ong shocked everyone. Not to mention the other two people who were trembling in fear. Even Yi Jing was scared out of her wits when she came back to her senses. It was not because she was afraid of Chen-ang's methods, but when she thought about the inside story of the old demon river Styx that Chen-ong had mentioned, now that Chen-ang's identity was different, what he said might not be false. She was afraid that she would harm her brother, and her fear was at its peak. She was about to send a letter to summon Yi Qing back, but it seemed like it was too late. A clear shout was heard from the Blood River Formation. Since ancient times, heroes have always been arrogant, and they will only die under the sword of Avicii. Yuan-Tu's immortal blood has not been wiped off, so don't panic when you go to River Styx. A black-robed youth stepped out of the formation on a red lotus. Behind him were two scarlet sword gleams, and the murderous aura was so sharp that it made one's liver tremble. The youth scanned the good and evil outside the formation, and his gaze stopped on the spiritual shuttle that was struggling in the Blood River Formation. Suddenly Mingi smiled. Without waiting for Yi Jing to cry out in pain, two ferocious sword gleams were already unsheathed. With just one sword, he slashed apart Xien-Ru Shun's guiding Buddha's light, and with another sword, he forced Ku Xien-Tuo's invisible flying sword to retreat. Without waiting for the sword gleams to dissipate, he made another turn at an impossible place. The two sword gleams merged into one and pierced through the spiritual shuttle, killing all the good faction rookies on it. Yi Jing watched as her brother's heart was pierced by a red thread-like sword gleam, as if all the blood in his body had been extracted. His lonely soul was also drenched by a wave of the Blood River, and was helplessly pulled into the depths of the Blood River. The spiritual light of his soul was stained with a layer of blood, and a bit of his true spirit was thrown into that unknown place. After being stained by the blood, Yuan-Tu and Avicii's sword gleams increased by another 30%. With a shake of the Blood River Formation, the formation suddenly expanded, and the blood clouds swallowed and spat out, covering a radius of tens of miles. First, Yuan-Tu's sword slashed through the obstruction of Xianyuan the Great's talisman, and killed more than 10 people from the demonic path. Then, Avicii's sword gleams moved gracefully, and with a myriad of phenomena, he forcefully slashed Ku Xien-Tuo's body out of the void. After slashing him 12 times, the Tai Ching celestial light protecting his body was broken, and he was almost killed. Chapter 509. Initially, many people in the righteous path were worried that the River Styx old demon would collude with the demons and take the opportunity to protect them. Then, in this battle of swords, the righteous path would be at a disadvantage. With such powerful swordsmanship, he could create an opening in the righteous path of immortals, and many of them would be doomed. Who knew that the River Styx would be so deranged that he would even kill his own people? Of course, they would not cheer for this. Only someone slapped his flying sword and said, "That old demon is crazy. Fellow Taoists, don't fight him head-on. Retreat for now and let those demon bastards fight among themselves." Xianyuan the Great leaped into a dark golden escape light and released a streak of Yin thunder. Among the heretics, only the Yin thunder cultivated by the Xianyuan Old Monster and Jiulai Celestial Lord were the most powerful. One lightning pearl could corrode thousands of miles, and it could easily cause boundless killing sins. It could destroy the earth veins and feng shui, and within hundreds of thousands of miles, the terrifying scene of the earth water, wind, and thunder in the primordial era would appear. He laughed and said, "River Styx brat, if you were still hiding in this formation, I wouldn't be able to do anything to you. But since you have walked out, don't go back. Don't go back. If you are willing to pledge allegiance to me, there is still room for discussion. If not, don't blame me for using your demonic fire to refine your soul." Deity Nun Exen Ru yelled, "Old monster, you are too arrogant. How would she dare to let Xian Yuan the Great's thunder explode and destroy the billions of lives here?" The little silk Buddha's light shone and split the heavens. It forcefully separated the place where the immortals were fighting their swords from the vast land of Southern Sea. It even protected most of the righteous cultivators behind the Buddha's light. Ascetic Buddha secretly used the Tai Ching celestial technique to destroy many of Xian Yuan the Great's thunder. However, it was too late, and most of the thunder had already touched the sea. If these thunders were to explode, these experts would not be worried, but those rookies of the righteous path, who rode the clouds too close, might not even be able to keep their souls. Just as the group of righteous elites were about to break into pieces, a 3-foot-high wave suddenly rose from the surface of the sea. Chen Ong stepped on the surface of the sea, and the boundless Milky Way soared into the sky, enveloping the hundreds of thunders. With a wave of his hand, the Milky Way transformed into an endless sea of stars, and a drop of true water was a world, dissolving the thunders into nothingness. Divine Nun Enlightened Heart smiled. "Thank you for your help, fellow cultivator." Chen Ong only smiled and said, "Since we are here, how can we allow this old monster to harm the living? Everyone, be careful." The Xian Yuan old monster did not know what he was relying on. He was not afraid of being punished by the heavens if he killed too many people. With him letting go, everyone's hands and feet were tied. "I have fought with River Styx thrice, and even though I could not do anything to him, I have secretly set up a great formation here. It's a pity that before he entered the trap, I had no choice but to use it. Everyone, please wait for me to control the great formation and isolate this place, so that everyone can fight freely and not have to worry about being punished by the heavens." With the One Life Heavenly Water Banner in his hand, Chen Ong only needed to move one layer of the Yellow River of 9 Bends. The true water of heavenly water that was like the Milky Way suddenly melted, and a drop of water that could fill up Poyang and Daunting Lake drowned the world in an instant. In the world formed by the Yellow River of 9 Bends, it evolved into a boundless sea. As the One Life Heavenly Water Banner swayed, heaven and earth flipped, and under their feet, there was an immeasurable amount of seawater that was tens of thousands of feet deep, overturned and poured towards everyone in the formation. The scene of the 4 seas overturning was truly shocking. Not to mention the fear in the hearts of the old demons, they thought. When did the righteous path have such a person? Such a method really has the power to destroy heaven and earth. I wonder if the righteous path has any more tricks up their sleeves? Even the mighty figures of heart like Goddess Nun, ascetic Buddha, the mystic door, and Buddhism were astonished. Such power, if he were to unleash it freely, wouldn't he be able to drown the whole of Central Plains? With the 4 seas overturning, the people of Central Plains wouldn't have to be fed with fishes and prawns, they would just have to wait for the 4 seas to fall and become meat pancakes. Ascetic Buddha sighed and said, "I've heard from the 2 Taoist friends of Mount Song that this person has unparalleled power and is blessed by the fate energy of the 4 seas. In the future, he will be the #1 person in the 4 seas. I originally thought that the 2 Taoist friends were just boasting, but now I know that the 2 of you are just being humble. With such a method, he is already the #1 person in the 4 seas." Qin Eng's voice broke through the realm and came over. "Everyone, please use all your methods. These old demons have offended the demon River Styx, they are courting death. The fate energy of the River Styx is connected to the Blood Sea, it is the greatest counter to the cultivators in the world. His Tao fruit is special, it is a tribulation with all living beings. Look. The evil chi of those demons has been shaved off, They are showing their true form of the tribulation of death. Everyone can use this to get rid of the demons. However, even though everyone's fate energy is deep and not as shallow as that of the demon path, you still can't go against this person recklessly. Otherwise, with the fate energy intertwining, no matter how strong your fate energy is, you won't be able to protect yourself. If you go against him, you will be dragged into the tribulation of death. If it wasn't for him killing you and breaking through the tribulation, his cultivation would be higher, and even I wouldn't be his match. It was him who faced the tribulation of death, his hot blood flowing down the drain. Chen Eng's words had the intention of isolating the demon path, but more importantly, it was to remind the people of the righteous path not to offend the supreme heavenly demon's clone, or else River Styx's murderous intent would skyrocket, and he would kill all of them. Not only would it attract the attention of the spiritual realm, but it might also create more opportunities for the master gods. Chen Ong would never do such a thing that would harm himself and benefit others. In the yellow river of Nine Bends formation, the blood clouds rumbled and the blood river flowed. River Styx appeared in midair on a red lotus, and he let out a wild cry. He said joyfully, "Cultivation is a path that goes against the heavens. I advise you not to be insolent. Be it ghosts, gods, demons, Buddhas, or immortals, you will die under the sword of Avicii." He looked around and said, "My friends, River Styx will send you on your way now." Two blood-like flying swords flew out again. This time, even the venerable poisonous dragon suffered a great loss. He only dealt with one sword gleam on the surface, but he did not expect that the sword gleam of Yuan-Tu and Avicii's swords would split into two. On the surface, there was only a bit of sharp sword chi, but under the sword gleam, the true body of the demon sword was hidden. His protective talisman and demon light were easily torn apart like silk. Fortunately, his mana was strong, and he could move 3 feet in the face of danger, avoiding his vitals, and only his calves were chopped off. Xianyuan the Great practiced the Blood God Sutra from another world, and had long refined his body into a blood god. Although he was restrained by the 2 swords, it was easy for him to fly. Yuan-Tu's sword gleam that slashed at him was easily dodged by him in a bloody shadow. However, the demons that were hiding behind were not so lucky. They only felt their spirits go blank, and then numbness, pain, and itchiness attacked them at the same time. Their eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and their telegnosis were all out of control. One by one, they could not stand still on their flying swords and tridents, and fell head first to the ground. In midair, they were bitten in half by the white bone demons, and fell into the blood clouds. Demon fire came out of their 7 orifices, and they burned themselves into skeletons. Or their bodies turned into a puddle of blood, or they became crazy and suddenly attacked their fellow sect members next to them. In the beginning, the few old demons thought that it was the power of the blood river formation itself. It was not until one of the old demons that had been practicing demon skills for many years, and a disciple of Xianyuan Old Monster, suddenly turned into a demon and killed the demons that were seeking protection, that they realized that something was wrong. Chapter 5:10. At this moment, the boundless seawater was overturned and millions of tons of seawater were pressing down on them. Other than the most powerful experts, everyone else was scared out of their wits. Yi Jing's face turned pale as she watched from outside the Buddha's light. She said sadly, "One wrong thought caused such a huge disaster for my father and caused my elder brother's death. Even if I find a reincarnated body in the future, my foundation will be ruined for several lifetimes." The righteous cultivators were fine. They had immortal Nun Xenru, the young man of Mount Tianqian, and the 7 experts of Mount Li to protect them. They also had Red Staff Celestial Child and ascetic Buddha to take care of them. Only a few unlucky ones were crushed by the seawater. Even immortal Nun Xien could not save them in time and died. It was even worse for the heretic cultivators. Outside, there was the yellow river of Nine Bends formation to open up the true water world. Inside, there was the river of blood formation and the 9 heavens and 10 earths formless demonic formation, attacking from both sides. The 2 demonic cultivators could not even take care of themselves. The old demons hiding in the dark were ruthless and selfish. They would not spare any effort to look after them. In just a few breaths of time, they were almost all killed by river stick. Of course, there were also a few vengeful spirits under Chun Ang's yellow river of 9 bends formation. In the end, other than a few direct descendants of the old demons, there were only a few of them left. Thinking back to the gathering of the heretic cultivators and the grand occasion of the heretic cultivators and the few of them now, one could imagine how murderous River Styx was. He had almost killed all the demons and heretic cultivators in the 4 seas. That little demon River Styx is powerful. It's a pity that Elder Ancestors' 9 heavens records devil-shifting Een thunder was broken by those hypocrites of the righteous cultivators. They wanted to get rid of River Styx as a great enemy too. They lied and pretended to be hypocrites to stop Elder Ancestor from using such a powerful thunder technique. How despicable! Xianyuan the Great glared at ascetic Duda, who was using the shapeless sword escape technique to hide himself. Divine Nun Exen-Ru shouted, "Xianyuan old monster, how can we tolerate you when you use such a heinous treasure without regard for the lives of living beings within 10,000 miles? The young man from Tianqian Mountain glanced at the remaining demons and suddenly laughed. This old demon River Styx has probably killed more heretics than you and the others from the mystic door. Only Venerable Jew, who swore to eradicate all evil, can compare to him. If we let him continue like this, we might not even need Mount Amay to start a massacre, we can still subdue the great calamity." Divine Nun Exen-Ru sighed, "Fellow Taoist River Styx is different from the others. He is the natural enemy of all Taoist cultivators. I have observed his mana. Although the bloody light is dense and his killing is swift and fierce, he is not evil, ruthless but not demonic. He is the righteous path of the demonic path. He kills on behalf of the heavens. He is not like us who are afraid of tribulations. Instead, he views tribulations as cultivation. The true meaning behind his actions is terrifying." Upon hearing this, River Styx smiled and said, "Observing the way of the heavens, carrying out the way of the heavens. Only by killing all living beings can one attain enlightenment." For Divine Nun Exen-Ru to be able to see this level, it shows how extraordinary the Buddhist Dharma is. The Tao of all living beings, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, forming the past and destroying the void, wind, earth, water, and fire, all of them are the same. You must know that the universe comes from order and chaos, all living beings come from life and die. Seeking immortality and attaining the Tao is from death to life, from chaos to order. This is an act that goes against the heavens. How can there be no response? Once this was said, Divine Nun Exen-Ru's expression changed drastically. She put her palms together and said, "Amit Ba. Although what you said is not without reason, it lacks mercy." River Styx waved his hand and said, "Do you think that we are following the heavenly Tao and carrying out punishment on behalf of the heavens? That's wrong. We of the demonic path value our true nature the most. We seek to be free and unfettered. How can we become the slaves of the heavenly Tao? I control the killing calamity because this is the most in line with my nature. All problems, all contradictions, all causes and effects, I cannot tolerate being trapped by them. Only by killing can my heart be at ease, my thoughts clear, and I can enjoy freedom. All the emotions in the world, those that trap my heart, I will slay them. Heretical demons, those that block my way, I will slay them. Karma and retribution, those that block my eyes, I will slay them. Ethics and rules, binding my body and mind, I will slay them. Is there anything in the world that cannot be resolved? Who in the world cannot be killed? If this world is in chaos, when the conflicts and interests of all living beings reach a critical point, there will also be people who control killing and restore the order of the world. Therefore, the killing calamity is the creation of heaven and earth by man, the grooming of dragons and snakes by the earth, the shifting of stars by the sky, seeking freedom, fighting for freedom, cutting off karma, and opening up heaven and earth. If one does not control killing, how can one talk about freedom? Once these words were spoken, River Styx's emotions accumulated to the peak. It was as if he had drunk a fine wine. His blood vessels relaxed, and the killing intent in his heart surged. Suddenly, he raised his sword again. This time, there was no distinction between the righteous path and the heretical path, nor between the mystic door and the unorthodox path. The sword light split into countless layers of shadows, killing anyone in sight. His killing intent was blazing like fire, but his consciousness was as calm as ice. Ice and charcoal in a furnace, Uentu and Avicii were the most unbridled. The venerable poisonous dragon's bare legs looked dim when he saw the gentle sword light. With just a slight touch, he felt the murderous intent lingering like the spring rain, nourishing everything silently. In fact, it was more mellow and hidden, like a ball of raging fire that wanted to burn everything. How could he not know that this sword was more dangerous and overbearing than the previous one? His soul almost left his body, and he was about to flee in panic. Fellow poisonous dragon, you have schemed for the true inheritance of the blood sea in my body, and have schemed against many people in the dark. If others insist on entangling with you for 100 years, they can only settle the score when your fate is decided. But now, with a sword that does not take karma, I can kill you and destroy your soul. All karma and schemes will turn into ashes. Isn't this wonderful? Chen Ong smiled faintly as he looked at Yuentu's sword light, which was like an antelope's horn hanging on an antelope's horn, breaking all the treasures and spells that venerable poisonous dragon had released. With just one sword, the venerable poisonous dragon's sword pierced through the space between his eyebrows, and even his primordial spirit was killed. Indistinctly, a bit of his true spirit was cast into the blood river formation. River Styx casually glanced at him, and the surrounding old demons were scared out of their wits. Even Xianyuan the Great, who had a winning attitude, could not help but change his expression. Divine Nun Xian Ru and ascetic Duda sighed. They were also a little shocked by the death of the Dianxian demon cult leader. After all, this was not a case of the righteous path plotting everything and using the general trend to force him to his death. Instead, he was killed in a head-on sword fight without being able to fight back. Yi Jing, who was watching from the outside, was already speechless. At this moment, she deeply felt that there was no hope for revenge, and she was filled with remorse. If I wasn't so arrogant, how could I have caused my brother's death? Chen Daoyu even reminded me. Xianyuan the Great saw that the people from the demonic path beside him were almost scared out of their wits. In order to regain their morale, he could only shout, "River Styx, pay with your life for my friend poisonous dragon." As soon as he finished speaking, he used the seven evils mystic heavenly net, which he was proud of in his life. It turned into a large piece of dark golden brilliance and shot out from his palm. This was the unique evil technique of Xianyuan Old Monster. It was different from the various spells cultivated by the Red Body cult leader Jiupan Po, and it was extremely powerful. No matter how amazing an invisible protective talisman was, it could sense it. It did not need to see its target to be able to surround it. Its power was extremely great and extraordinary. Furthermore, his body was also enveloped by the demonic light. Talismans and flying swords could not harm him. This was originally a talisman with a form, but it was refined into formlessness by an extremely advanced evil technique. It could be combined with many of the old monster's spells, and its power was even greater. Chapter 511. Now, River Styx was the only one in the Blood River Matrix. He was facing dozens of powerful cultivators outside the Matrix, all of whom were powerful enemies who risked their lives against him. Yet, he did not seem to care as he talked and laughed. He was still as arrogant as before, holding his two murderous weapons and treating these people like ants. It was as if he was not facing the siege of many enemies, but was trying to kill everyone here with his own strength. Such a dignified bearing made it impossible for anyone to underestimate him. Everyone recalled his killing spree and had to admit that River Styx had the ability to say such words. The venerable poisonous dragon's bloody life was here, and no one could refute his ability to kill Xianyuan the Great. Chen Ong pointed his finger, and Yuantu's and Avicii's blood-red sword lights turned into two long rainbows that resembled rivers of blood and pierced into the group of heretics. They were blocked by Xianyuan Old Monster's 7 fiends' mystical heavenly net demonic light. He vaguely felt an invisible force trying to stop the two sword lights, but the flying swords turned and moved 100 feet away, almost cutting Xianyuan Old Monster in half. However, because the demonic light enveloped Xianyuan the Great's dozens of acres of land, the surrounding demonic light froze like glue when Yuantu and Avicii's swords came out of the void. The swords slowed down and gave Xianyuan Old Monster time to move. Chen Ong saw that the flying swords were useless, but he managed to get some information about the 7 fiends' mystical heavenly net demonic light. Originally, the Samadhi demonic true fire was the best way to restrain it, but it was a sign of his main identity. There were many hidden dangers if he took it out, so he could only settle for the next best thing. He waved his hand and released the red lotus karmic fire. An acre of fire cloud surged forth and destroyed the old monster's demonic light. Xianyuan Fuang only touched a little bit of it, but he felt that he had triggered Nameless. The anxiety in his primordial spirit was almost uncontrollable. Wherever the fire burned, even the body of the blood god could not get rid of it. He had no choice but to ruthlessly cut off the part of the blood shadow that he touched and watched it turn into ashes. Unexpectedly, this little bit of karmic fire followed the meridians of his breath and moved to him, triggering the karmic fire that he had accumulated over the years. For a moment, it triggered the anxiety in his vital spirit, which turned into the inner demon burning heart, burning his 7 orifices to the point that devil fire spurted out. Under the attack from both inside and outside, his vital spirit was almost exhausted, forcing Xianyuan Fuang to turn into a bloody shadow and fly away. In a shapeless blood shadow, the red lotus karmic fire was like maggots on bones, entangling him. Only then did Xianyuan Old Monster know that he had met his nemesis. On the other side, River Styx's sword light flashed and killed another person. The foundation of the Blood River Formation was not touched, but the blood cloud spread and the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation was pressuring them from the outside. Unlike the Righteous Path, which had the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation to secretly protect them, the heterodox demons could not advance or retreat. They had to be careful of the White Bone Demon's claws and Shapeless Sky Demon's attacks. If they were not careful, someone would be captured by the Appearance Sky Demon and the White Bone Demon God and dragged into the Blood River. There were also people who were ambushed by the Formless Sky Demon, the 5 Lust of Heaven, and the 7 Emotions Demon God. They fell into the blood cloud and fell into the Blood River Formation, dying instantly. Not only did half of the people of the heterodox path die in an instant, but under the protection of the seniors of the righteous path, there were also people who suddenly went berserk under the protection of the Buddha's light. They turned into blood shadows and pounced on the people around them. The 2 sword lights that Chen Ong released were even more lethal weapons. Ordinary demonic path experts did not have the mana that Xianyuan the Great had. Even if they released demonic lights and treasures to protect themselves, they would still be killed along with the treasures and demonic light. A blood light flashed and 1 person died. His corpse fell into the blood river like dumplings. In a few breaths, he turned into a blood light and went out to suck the blood of others. These blood shadows and blood lights were killed by ascetic Buddha's shapeless sword and refined by immortal nun Xian's Buddha's light. In an instant they were reborn in the blood river. They were immortal and indestructible. River Styx scattered red lotuses and the hellfire Lianhua bloomed all over the blood river. On the 800 miles of meandering river, countless bloodlights, devils, and inner devils struggled to fly out from the blood river. They turned into the appearance of the sky demon and eroded all the mana in the formation. Even the big and small silk Buddha's Dharma, which was released by immortal nun Xian Rui using the supreme Dharma of Buddhism, was eroded and gnawed away by these endless devils. Within a radius of 10 million miles, a single stray thought of all sentient beings would transform into a devil above the blood river. Billions of living beings had endless stray thoughts. Above the blood river, there were endless demons and devils. Unless immortal nun Xian Rui could purify the stray thoughts of billions of living beings, how could she kill all these demons? Another 36 formless sky demons appeared with the obsession of all living beings. Each of them was like a sky demon with endless supernatural powers and boundless mana. The blood river transformed into the 9 heavens and 10 earths, the celestial palaces and hell. There were 36 gods and devils who transformed into the myriad of living beings. The celestial music and Buddhist chants came from the celestial palaces and the devils from hell. Within 10 breaths, they infected dozens of cultivators of the righteous and evil path. They threw themselves into the 9 heavens and 10 earths and turned into the celestial ladies, celestial generals, and devils from hell. Outside the formation, Yi Jing was dumbfounded. She cried out, 9 heavens and 10 earths formless void demon formation. Only then did she know that what Chen Ong said was true. Her heart was filled with remorse and hatred. She faintly received many stray thoughts of devils. The sky demon sensed into her primordial spirit. When it saw a devil who looked similar to its elder brother suffering in hell, it lost control of its heart and soul. The beer demon fire suddenly exploded. A devil shadow with the same face as one of the 36 gods quietly appeared in her ocean of consciousness. It chanted a devil scripture and slowly destroyed her foundation. It eliminated the divine light of beer and soul. Seeing that Yi Jing's Tao foundation was about to fall, the devil voice in her ocean of consciousness was about to transform her into a devil. A big hand quietly tapped on the center of her brows and a sigh was heard, "Silly child." The Tai Ching celestial light turned and countless devils on her beer were refined like silk cocoons. After a few breaths, the sky demon sensed it and smiled mysteriously. It disappeared into thin air and returned to the celestial demon diagram with a little wisdom and spirituality of Yi Jing, turning into the essence of one of the sky demons. Yi Jing's face turned pale and she came to her senses. The big hand had already disappeared without a trace. If it was not for the Tai Ching celestial light that was still stationed in her beer, Yi Jing would have thought that everything was just an illusion when she was possessed by the devil. When she sensed her primordial spirit, her foundation was greatly damaged. Almost all of her achievements in this lifetime were stolen by the sky demon. Almost half of the foundation that she had built over several lifetimes was destroyed. In this lifetime, in the celestial Tao diagram, it was like flowers in a mirror or the moon in the water. Only then could she make up for it with amazing hard work and opportunities. Only then could she attempt to ascend. Otherwise, she would have to reincarnate for another lifetime. At this moment, in the yellow river of 9 bends, almost all of the young cultivators from the right and evil path were dead or injured. There were only a few cultivators from the right path, and there were only 2 cultivators from the left path. This also confirmed what Chen Ong had said previously: 9 out of 10 of them will suffer. It was hard to describe how tragic it was. River Styx sat in the protection of countless gods and demons. He stepped on the red lotus of hellfire and spat out countless golden blade demonic fire, demonic light and dark thunder. The surrounding wind, earth, water and fire were all in chaos. Endless astral wind and earth spirits, golden blade demonic fire, dark thunder and demonic light rolled around in the true water domain. They were born and died, presenting a hellish scene. The golden blade of 1,000 transformations was invincible and as sharp as the tip of a superior flying sword. It was endless and could be destroyed as it came and went. It could easily turn into 1,000 blades and cut into thousands of pieces. It specialized in breaking the mana of the body. The demonic light shook the mind and enchanted the soul. It silently corroded the bones and drained the chi of essence. The demonic sound and divine thunder danced nonstop. As it flashed, it reflected the red light and turned into a strange color. It was very beautiful. However, if it came into contact with it, it would be like thousands of mother and child bombs exploding at the same time. In an instant, it could blast a huge mountain into pieces. Coupled with the two great weapons, Avicii and Uentu, they really had the power to kill gods and demons. It took over a dozen seniors of the righteous path to join hands to protect their juniors from the two demonic formations and the endless magic. The remaining members of the devil path were all bitterly struggling, desperately begging for a way to survive. Xianyuan Dharmaraja forcibly suppressed the red lotus karmic fire on his body and did his best to fight against the 72 divine demons. The black and golden light was torn to pieces, and he had to face the even more terrifying harassment of the 36 divine demons. He saw River Styx and shouted, "Old demon River Styx, on account that we are all from the diabolism, let me go. Otherwise, we will kill each other and let the people of the righteous path benefit. Today, if you show mercy and let me go, I will definitely respect you in the future. If you still want to kill me, I will fight you to the death." Chapter 5:12. When Xianyuan the Great said this, his tone was urgent and sincere, like a cuckoo crying blood. His voice traveled far and wide. His words were not only meant for River Styx, but also for everyone else present. He was hinting at River Styx's tyrannical way of doing things. Without the lips, the teeth would be interdependent. He was not referring to anything else, but whether or not River Styx would attack the others after killing him. The urgency of his shout and the despair in his tone made the others in the Blood River Matrix, such as ascetic Duda, heart-like divine Nun, the 7 sons of Mount Lee, and the rest feel a chill in their hearts. They were even more wary of River Styx. Even so, no one dared to stop River Styx from killing countless people. This was not only because of River Styx's prowess in killing, but also because of the difference between good and evil. Xianyuan the Great shouted 3 times. He turned his head to look at his surroundings, but all he saw was silence. Not to mention the people of the righteous path, even the people of the demonic path were holding their breaths, not daring to respond. He could not help but laugh into the sky, and a sense of loneliness and desolation rose in him. He laughed maniacally and said, "My ending today will be a lesson for all of you in the future. River Styx, will there be no descendants of the initiator?" River Styx did not wait for him to continue. A black gourd appeared above the blood cloud above his head. On the gourd sat a 3-inch-tall golden cicada with eyebrows and eyes. As the gourd turned, the golden cicada disappeared in a flash. Xianyuan the Great's body had suddenly turned into a bloody shadow. His face, which was covered in bloody light, was filled with shock and disbelief. "Xianyuan the Great, you have the body of the blood god. Normal treasures and spells would not be able to harm you. Why are you acting like a child? You've become a laughing stock." River Styx smiled faintly and said, "Before this, you probably did not think that I would be able to kill you. You're just cautious by nature, and you wanted to use this opportunity to plot against me. That's why you're acting like you're at the end of your road. Unfortunately, I am the nemesis of this spell of yours. My mystic number 25 soul slasher specializes in killing primordial spirit demons. It's a magic art I specially refined for the Blood God's immortal technique in the Blood God mantra. In order to prevent you from being reborn in other sons of Blood God's body, I borrowed the principle of the first acquired killing technique to kill your 1,695 sons of Blood God's incarnations at the same time. Even though this magic art is flawed, You only have a slim chance of survival now. River Styx smiled and said, Brother Xianyuan, it's time for you to die. As soon as he finished speaking, the 9 heavenly palaces and the 10 levels of hell suddenly collapsed into a scroll and fell into River Styx's hands. As River Styx unfolded the celestial demon drawing, Xianyuan Old Monster's blood shadow primordial spirit could no longer be maintained. It turned into a spot of blood light and entered the celestial demon drawing. The celestial demon's secret technique also attracted more than 1,000 illusionary clones of the blood god. They followed Xianyuan Old Monster's breath and attracted all the evil children and evil grandchildren who had cultivated the blood god mantra. The blood light fell like rain into the celestial demon drawing one by one, becoming nutrients for the celestial demon's growth. After taking the lives of Xianyuan Old Monster's Western Kongtong orthodoxy, River Styx counted on his fingers. Among Xianyuan the Great's clan, only 1 or 2 escaped. They were scared out of their wits and could not cause any trouble. The Western Kongtong orthodoxy of demonic path had come to an end. The Venerable of 5 Obsessions, who was further away, seemed to be scared out of his wits. However, Chen Ong could feel that the spot of blood light in the Venerable of 5 Obsessions, whose consciousness was controlled by him, was transforming and being reborn. Xianyuan Old Monster had left a backup plan in the Venerable of 5 Obsessions. The spot of blood light quickly absorbed the Venerable of 5 Obsessions's blood god Dharma power and grew. It even tried to erase the Venerable of 5 Obsessions's consciousness. Unfortunately, the Venerable of 5 Obsessions's consciousness had long been erased by Chen Ong. What was left was a living bait to lure Xianyuan Old Monster into the trap. Chen Eng's heart was filled with mockery. He transmitted his consciousness over and said, Xianyuan Old Monster, River Styx has been waiting here for a long time. As soon as he finished speaking, he activated the Blood River Dharma power. The 49 Blood Sea True Talismans suddenly refined the Venerable of 5 Obsessions completely. At the same time, Xianyuan the Great's consciousness was refined into a blood god. The direct confrontation of consciousness made Xianyuan the Great come to a sudden realization. River Styx, why are you so proficient in the Blood God Sutra? Could it be that you were the one who taught me the Blood God Sutra? River Styx shook his head and smiled. If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to keep your consciousness intact, would I have allowed you to live until today? If I didn't refine you into a blood god, would you have told me what I wanted? I'm sorry, I broke my promise. Venerable poisonous dragon, it's better for you to die alone. I have other uses for your soul. He transmitted these words through his consciousness. However, in the eyes of the others, River Styx smiled and kept his promise to the Venerable of 5 Obsessions. He melted the Venerable of 5 Obsessions into a ball of bloody light and shrunk it into the shape of a pearl. He placed it in River Styx's hand. Yuan-Tu and Avicii's swords hovered above River Styx's head. They trembled slightly and pointed at the rest of the people present. River Styx stepped on the Blood River formation. The red lotus of karmic fire fell continuously from River Styx's body. They drifted and burned, turning into sparks around him. They carried with them the ashes of the tribulation and a hint of murderous intent. I love to chop people's heads the most in my life. I haven't stopped for 23 years. My swords never return to their sheaths. I want to dye the universe with blood. River Styx played with his sword and sang. He smiled and said to the people around him, My friends, the overseas calamity has entered its final phase. Chen Daoyu is unwilling to attack me together with the others. However, his physical body has been suppressed by me, so he still has to fight one more round to complete this calamity. If there's nothing else, you may leave this place. He opened up the Blood River formation and made a path. At the same time, Yuan-Tu and Avicii were still hovering above his head. They looked like they could choose whether to retreat or face the calamity again. Immortal Nun Xian Rui was the first to admit defeat. She sighed and said, I'm not from this world. My friend River Styx has not committed too many sins. Although his murderous nature is too strong, I really don't want to interfere. I think the heavenly devil that was born was my friend River Styx himself. Immortal nun Exhilarating revealed the shocking inside story. River Styx smiled and did not answer, as if he had silently agreed. Immortal nun Exhilarating sighed. She asked Chen Ong to open up a path and left. Ascetic Buddha protected his back and said to River Styx, "If my friend restrains your disciples and does not commit evil deeds, May will not make things difficult for you." Seeing that River Styx smiled faintly and did not reply, he pondered for a few breaths and left with the group of righteous juniors who had suffered heavy casualties. The 7 friends of Mount Lee and Red Staff Celestial Child stood side by side. Red Staff Celestial Child took a step forward and said, "I wonder if you are related to a drought demon corpse demon that my esteemed teacher, Reverend Red Staff Celestial Child." He was a senior cultivator from the Pre-Qin dynasty whose Taoist name was Solitary Housey. River Styx smiled and said, "After Solitary Housey died, he became Drought Demon, but Drought Demon is not Solitary Housey. Drought Demon degenerated into a supreme heavenly devil, but heavenly devil is not Drought Demon. From birth to death, from death to life, River Styx is born. Therefore, Solitary Housey is Solitary Housey and River Styx is River Styx. Although they were once one, they are now 2 people. The karma of the past has nothing to do with River Styx." Chapter 5:13. The battle between River Styx and the immortals of the righteous and evil path was truly mesmerizing and frightening. Many people outside the formation only saw the golden knife devil fire, the heavenly demon thunder, and the endless illusions. Then, they saw many cultivators inside the formation suffering misfortune. These people inside the formation were even more ashamed of having narrowly escaped death. Their hearts were still thumping non-stop. The new righteous cultivators, who had been scared out of their wits, retreated. When they saw Chen Ong standing at the side with his banner, they were both embarrassed and angry. They did not care about their previous rescue and instead felt resentful. It was not that they did not know that Chen Ong was a senior with incredible mana and had once fought against the old demon River Styx. However, as a righteous cultivator, Chen Ong was not like the old demon River Styx, who killed wantonly. He had many scruples in his actions. Their background and elders were useless in front of the old demon River Styx. He would kill them if he wanted to. Even if their fathers and elders came personally, they would die. However, in front of Chen Ong, they thought for no reason that Chen Ong should give face to their elders and masters. The man dressed as a scholar was lucky enough to escape death, but he lost an arm. His body was covered in blood, and he was in a sorry state. At this moment, he was using severed spiritual medicine to reattach his arm. When he saw Chen Ong standing calmly at the side, he could not help but feel resentful. He said loudly, "Senior, you are so brave. When we were fighting the old demon River Styx, we did not see you. Now that we have come out of the demonic formation, we can see you here. Earlier, you said that you were old friends with the River Styx. I wonder if you did not want to interfere because of your old friendship, so you let us go." His words were sinister, encouraging the people around him who were lucky enough to escape to suddenly feel a common hatred for the enemy. They had the intention to reverse the course of events, to destroy Chen Ang's reputation, to give him the bad name of an unorthodox and eccentric person. How could Chen Ong not know this person's plan? But his vision was worlds apart from these rising stars. Although he did not care about their schemes, nor did he care about their lives, but since they had offended him like this, he should let them have a taste of suffering, so that these rising stars would know that old Master Chen's temper was not to be trifled with, lest any Tom, Dick, or Harry would come to provoke him in the future. He smiled and said, "Earlier, I calculated that you would die in this calamity, but now you have escaped. What kind of logic was this? Fortunately, you are shrouded in blood clouds, Your glabella is dark, and you look like you are about to die. I should have to trouble this young master to personally send you to face the calamity." As soon as he finished speaking, he rolled up the long banner and controlled the formation to move him into the Blood River formation. On the other side, the river Styx and Chun Ong had a telepathic connection. With a scream, he had already been sent to reincarnation. Chen Ong glanced at the few people who had been stirring up trouble. He shook his head and smiled. "Unfortunately, my hand slipped and I accidentally sent that fellow Taoist into the Devil's Denver. However, I have always been meticulous in my calculations, and my divinations never go wrong. Last time, I said that everyone here would face the calamity, but look, I still had to trouble the old devil, River Styx, to make a move. This time, the one who did not calculate correctly is me. Although I have no enmity with him, this is fate, and I can't go against the heavens. I calculated with my fingers, and that fellow Taoist just now is fated with me. He must have needed my help to disintegrate his corpse and reincarnate, so he provoked me. I have a kind heart, so I fulfilled his wish." Ascetic Duddha, who was standing at the side, was also a thick-skinned and black-hearted person. Although he saw the killing intent, he did not stop it. He slowly calculated in his heart, and sure enough, what Chen Ong said was true. He was a person with no fortune, and an unlucky person with a bad fate. Although Chen Ong acted strangely, there were many elders in the righteous path who had a similar temper as him. The sage nun, the venerable Jew, and the others with extraordinary cultivation had a temper even worse than Chen Ong, and they had killed more people than Chen Ong. The Amei sect had a lot of experience in dealing with these people. Moreover, these new talents of the righteous path were actually just a few big sects from the overseas, and they could not be considered as the orthodox orthodoxy of the mystic door. Unlike Chen Ong, who was born as an ancient daffodil, his cultivation and mana were 10 times higher than the elders of the other sections. His orthodoxy was not inferior to the Amei sect, and he was on good terms with the Amei sect. He was also the strongest person in the overseas, and he was the person who would open the calamity of the 4 seas in the future and establish the orthodoxy of the overseas. Ascetic Duddha was thick-skinned and black-hearted, and he was already the most skilled person in the Amei sect. Naturally, he would not fall out with Chen Ong over such a small matter. Moreover, this was the first conflict between the orthodoxy of the 4 seas, and if these big sects refused to bow to Chen Ong, there would be a lot of killing in the future. With the Amei sect's position of never standing on the side of the losers, they naturally knew what to do. Immediately, he tried to persuade those rising stars of the righteous path, who were angry but did not dare to speak, and who were as frightened as quails. In order to prevent them from provoking Chen Ong again, it was hard to say whether Chen Ong would be in trouble or not, but if they came again, they would definitely die. Ascetic Duddha would not look good either, so he simply cast a spell and teleported them hundreds of miles away. Then, he said to Chen Ong, "Chen Daoyou's physical body is trapped in the demonic formation, do you need our help? This old river Styx's mana is extraordinary, and I've secretly investigated him. He is the true disciple of the Azura's blood sea demonic path, and he enters the path of Tao by killing. This time, he has killed many people, and his mana has improved by another level. If you go looking for trouble with him again, I'm afraid it will be a little troublesome. Furthermore, your physical body is suppressed. Although it is convenient to use your primordial spirit, if he dug out your physical body, I'm afraid there will be many spells to harm you." Chen Ong thought for a moment. Although I have obtained most of what I wanted this time, and even gained many unexpected rewards to maintain the identity of River Styx, I still need to put on a show. Furthermore, River Styx has killed countless immortals of the righteous and evil path, and can be considered to have broken through the first tribulation of the opening of the 4 seas. Originally, the immortals of the South Sea had blocked the path, and the forces of the 4 seas had come to find trouble with me. It should have been to train me, and complete the transformation of the forces of the four seas in my hands, starting the 500-year killing tribulation of the four seas immortals. However, I borrowed the descent of the heavenly demon, and the supreme demon body of great Azura to form the great Tao of the Blood River. I killed on behalf of the heavens, and with the advantage of not being afraid of karma, I transferred the great tribulation to the identity of River Styx, and used this identity to go on a killing spree. I killed all the immortals who blocked the path, and eradicated the tribulation from the root. However, this is, after all, a method to avoid the tribulation, and the fate energy it relies on is not stable. Based on the fate energy of the dragon vein in the mortal world, it is considered to be an unjust country, and there will be endless troubles in the future. A portion of fate energy is occupied by River Styx, and it is not stable. From the perspective of the hearts of people, it is because I have not been able to dominate the four seas, and if the hearts of people are not convinced, there will be many twists and turns in the future. If I can use this conflict with River Styx to transfer the fate energy back, it will be more beneficial. As he thought of this, he used the Godfiend diagram in River Styx's hand to sense it. As expected, the immortals of the South Sea feared River Styx to the core, but they did not obey him. Instead, they were resentful. Previously, when that unlucky fellow provoked him, there were signs that his fate energy was not stable. Chapter 5:14. His thoughts raced like lightning, but he replied, "Although that old demon Styx River is quite powerful, I'm not someone to be trifled with. Although he has forced my corporeal body into the cold spring to suppress it, it's also because I have the intention to guard Senior Qi Zhang's prohibition and trap his sky demon body instead. Otherwise, if he had set up the River of Blood formation, although Senior Qi Zhang's mana is superb, the prohibition that he set up might not last for long. Unfortunately, I don't know where Xianyuan Fuang learned a set of evil demonic methods similar to the Blood God Sutra. One of his disciples and his disciples wanted to trick the predecessor of the skyscraping devil into their trap and refined the predecessor of the skyscraping devil, Hanba, into the son of the Blood God. However, this gave the skyscraping devil an opportunity to refine him. Instead, he became the body of the skyscraping devil and the primordial spirit of Blood River. That allowed him to become the sky devil and break most of Senior Qi Zhang's restriction. Although I discovered it early and did not let him have his way, I also lost his Blood River primordial spirit. That's why the River Styx was born. Previously, I asked fellow Tan Yun to go to Mount Amei to ask for help while I went to pursue the Blood River primordial spirit, River Styx. I did not expect his cultivation to skyrocket and get rid of me. Instead, he came back and killed me. After that, this River Styx merged with the body of the Supreme Sky Devil and borrowed most of his mana, which I could not control. At that time, he had already set up the Blood River formation and collected souls and blood from everywhere to refine the most terrifying demonic treasure, the formless and formless celestial demon diagram of the 9 heavens and 10 earths. This treasure is the orthodox secret inheritance of the Sky Devil. I don't know how it fell into the hands of the Sky Devil. If I let him fuse the true inheritance of the Sky Devil and Great Azura, I'm afraid that the people in the world would be plunged into misery and suffering. I knew that it was impossible to stop him, so I played along and pretended to fall into the eye of his formation and was trapped by him. In fact, I took the opportunity to escape into the ice essence of the cold spring in the sea eye and used Reverend Qi Zhang's restriction and the cold spring to trap his body so that he could not completely escape. Then, I released my primordial spirit to tangle with him, so that he would not focus on controlling the formation to save the Sky Devil's body and destroy my body. Now that he has used the killing tribulation to complete 2 great demonic formations, his Tao of killing has almost reached perfection. My scheme can't do anything to him. Right now, we can only enter his devil formation and use formations to counter formations to drive him away. Chun Ong told the ascetic Buddha about the twisted truth that turned black into white and Lianhua. As he had reversed the heavenly mystery, it seemed more believable than the truth. Although the ascetic Buddha, the 7 friends of Mount Li, and the red staff celestial child were shrewd, and it was hard to tell how much of what he said was true from their faces, but they still admitted it. So, it was decided to be the truth for the time being. Ascetic Buddha nodded and sighed. This old river Styx's sorcery power is unparalleled. Now, he's vaguely the #1 demonic cultivator in the 4 seas, but he only has a blood river primordial spirit. Even the few hidden old demons of West Kunlun might not be able to match up to him. If he regains his physical body, I'm afraid that the common people will suffer, and the demons will die. Fellow Taoist, for you to be able to trap him until now, it's really a great merit. These words caused the 7 friends of Mount Li to nod their heads in agreement. They smiled at Chun Ong approvingly, and Chun Ong returned the greeting. Ascetic Buddha continued. Now that River Styx has matured, as long as he doesn't commit a crime against the heavens, he's almost uncontrollable. He monopolizes the blessings of the demonic path, and his providence lasts for a long time. He also has the responsibility of initiating the tribulation of immortals and killing on behalf of the heavens. As long as he doesn't harm the mortals, his providence won't dissipate. He's the most difficult demon to deal with in the past 1,000 years. Fortunately, his providence and the demonic path's old troubles are in conflict, and the demonic path is the cause of the fall of Xianyuan the Great and the venerable poisonous dragon. But when he unifies the demonic path and gets rid of the dissidents, he'll turn around and make things difficult for us, so we have to be on guard. Chun Ong nodded and said, Originally, I wanted to build a mansion here to suppress his body, so that his providence won't be complete, and there'll be a flaw, so it'll be easier to subdue him in the future. But now that his providence has matured and broken through the tribulation, this plan has become useless. It's also hard to predict the will of the heavens. Chun Ong shook his head and sighed, his eyes filled with worry. He vividly displayed the regret and unwillingness of a righteous master who was worried about the country and the people, and shouldered the fate of the world. His feelings were sincere, and his performance was moving, but it made the righteous seniors around him, who couldn't understand him and had a bad impression of him, look at him in a new light. They secretly sighed that although he had a strange temper, he didn't lose his compassion. Their bad impression of him faded, and they had a good impression of him. When Cheng of the 7 friends of Mount Li advised, the skyscraping demon monopolized the providence of the demonic path for 1,000 years, and it was sensed by the tribulation of immortals. The providence lasts for a long time, and before the tribulation is over, it's almost impossible to suppress it. He even escaped from the restrictions set by Senior Reverend Redstaff. Fellow Taoist, you've made a mistake, but it's also because of the heavens, so there's no need to be sad. Fellow Taoist Ame ascetic monk and I came together to trap him, but we still couldn't fight him. This shows how powerful this demon is. That venerable poisonous dragon and Xianyuan the Great are not ordinary people. Venerable poisonous dragon established the Dianxi devil cult, and Xianyuan the Great is the #1 among the evil sections. He did evil for hundreds of years, and no one could stop him, but he lost his life in front of this demon. River Styx is a fierce killer, and his providence lasts for a long time. It's really shocking. Ascetic Buddha smiled bitterly and said, Those 2 demons have done all kinds of evil, and it's supposed to be a happy thing that they've faced this tribulation. But because of this, a demon that's 10 times more powerful than them has appeared. It's really a pity. Chun Ong pinched his fingers and calculated, this River Styx old demon has obtained a lot of blood and souls, and the celestial demon diagram is about to be completed. I'm afraid that in a few hours, he'll be able to break through the cold spring of the earth vein and retrieve my body. By then, my body will definitely be in danger. But I'll take advantage of this time when half of his attention is focused on the diagram to break through his 2 layers of formations and retrieve my body. Fellow Taoists, please hold the formation for me. The 7 friends of Mountly sighed inwardly. Chen Ang's words meant that he didn't want them to interfere directly. They thought, Chen Daoyu is still too straightforward. This demon is so vicious, why would he care about his face? If we advance and retreat together, wouldn't our chances of winning increase by a lot? They then saw Chen Ang smiling at them, and knew that he had accepted their kindness. They could only surround the Blood River formation and hold the formation for him. As Chen Ang stepped into the formation, the 9 Bends Yellow River formation surged even more. The formation went through a series of changes, and a surging celestial river appeared. It stretched endlessly and crossed the sky. The 5 types of true water scattered countless ice soul divine thunder, Gui water divine thunder, Iyuan divine thunder, Tai Yin divine thunder, and Bai Luo divine thunder. They blasted the space within the formation into a pool of chaos. Only the Blood River formation shrunk into a ball and protected the center tightly. A huge lianhua surrounded the Blood River and bloomed in the center of the Celestial River. No matter how the Celestial River revolved and the true water poured down, cutting off the foundation of the Blood River formation and sealing the formation's chi meridians, the lianhua didn't budge. Old Demon River Styx was waiting at ease. After a few hours, when the formation was completed, he would retrieve his body. The few people who were watching the battle naturally thought of River Styx's plan. Another of the 7 friends of Mountly sighed and said, If it wasn't for Chen Daoyu taking care of us and revealing this formation in advance, it wouldn't have been so difficult. We have implicated Chen Daoyu. The other 6 people felt slightly guilty, but ascetic Buddha's eyes flickered. No one knew what he was plotting. When Tring calculated and said, with River Styx guarding it with all his might, Chen Daoyu's formation might be extraordinary, but it will be hard to break it in a few days. With the old demon's 2 formations combined, it will take years to wear down the formation's chi of vitality. Chen Daoyu's formation can melt a heavenly immortal in 7 days, but the Blood River formation's chi of vitality is stable, and it can communicate with the Blood Sea River Styx. It is the hardest to deal with. If we don't do anything, it will be hard for Chen Daoyu to break it. Chapter 5:15. It was no wonder that when Qing said so. It was because the formation used by the 2 people in the formation was already the best formation method in the world. The Yellow River of 9 Bends was the destiny of the 4 seas. It was used by Chen Ang to establish the 4 seas, to suppress the 4 seas and the 4 poles CI, and to unify the orthodoxy overseas. It was like the Amei Yin and Yang dust formation. It was the foundation and lifeline of a sect to suppress the destiny of the orthodoxy. River Styx's Blood River formation and 9 heavens and 9 earths formless demonic formation represented the orthodox of the Azura demonic path and free-form incarnation demonic path. With the Blood River formation, River Styx had the hope of competing with Old Man Corpse Pie for the orthodox of the Azura demonic path. With the celestial demon diagram, he was now the successor of the free-form incarnation demonic path. If Grandma Jiopan of the Red Body sect wanted to claim her orthodoxy as the orthodox, she would have to compete with him on the sword. Under such a stalemate, it seemed like Chen Ang also felt that it was not a solution. He changed the formation again. Chen Ang took a deep breath of genuine qi. He absorbed a bit of evil qi and mixed it with his mana. He no longer used pure water to attack. Instead, he combined it with the Ci inside. He borrowed the power of the Ci to swallow and spit out the boundless seawater of the South Sea. He borrowed the power of the 4 seas to activate countless 5-colored divine sand to continuously wear down the 2 formations of River Styx. Previously, under the magnetic earth vein of the Copper Coconut Island, Chen Ang collected a lot of heavy and turbid magnetic qi. He released it all this time. He sacrificed the same type of 5-colored divine sand and gradually let the magnetic chi seep into the divine sand. With the power of the Yellow River formation, he refined the thumb-sized sand into coarse sand that was as thick as an ant's stomach. He refined it into 5-colored golden sand that was hundreds of feet deep. He had the magnetic force and could gather and disperse it at his will. With the power of the Tiani true water, it was like a golden rain of light that covered the sky and the earth. It was wrapped in the sea current and surrounded river Styx. The surrounding pressure was as heavy as a mountain. Because it contained the earth magnetic essence chi, it was extremely sticky and entangled. Countless 5-colored divine magnetism sand were gathered together by the magnetic force, mixed with the first origin heavy water, and contained a tremendous dark force. No matter what material came into contact with it, it would be entangled by this dark force, sinking into it like quicksand. This 5-colored divine magnetism sand was tough and coarse, and even great unity metal would be torn apart if it was pulled into it. Water carried the power of sand, and sand borrowed the power of water. Once one came into contact with this divine magnetic sand, it would be extremely difficult to escape unless one cut off the part that had fallen into the sand. Once a flying sword was released, as long as it was refined from the essence of the 5 metals, it would immediately be bound by the 5-colored essence-fused divine sand, unable to be destroyed. More and more flying swords would be bound by the 5-colored essence-fused divine sand. If one were to become one with the sword, even the person would be swept away. Everyone watching the formation was secretly shocked. Ascetic Buddha frowned deeply. This formation was very powerful, and the divine magnetic sand stretched for 100 miles, which was the best counter to his invisible sword escape. If someone used the invisible sword to fly above this formation, it would definitely cause a reaction from the divine sand. This invisible sword was also refined from the 5 metals, and once it was bound by the divine sand, not only would the original invisible sword escape be destroyed, even the person would be swept away by the divine sand. With his transcendence energy, the divine sand would only be a little troublesome, but if it caused the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation to react as well, and he would be dragged into it, then he would be digging his own grave. If it was his disciple, the Laughing Monk, not only would the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation be destroyed, even the divine magnetic sand would be able to destroy him. Ascetic Buddha knew that the Laughing Monk was very arrogant. Other than those from Mount Amay, he would not even be interested in ordinary seniors from the unorthodox sections. With such a temper, if he encountered this divine sand formation, he would most likely be at a great disadvantage. He might even lose his life in it. In his heart, he had already made up his mind that he had to deal with the Laughing Monk, and he had to warn him again and again not to provoke Chen Ongzhong Zai, who was standing at the side, was also praising. Chen Daoyou's Yellow River of 9 Bends formation is already very powerful, and with the support of the divine sand formation, the magnificent scene of the Yellow River of 9 Bends 10,000 miles of sand is truly unfathomable. With such a formation, the 7 of us can only resist it for a while. No matter how many powerful treasures you have, or how powerful your spells are, you can only last for a few breaths. With the endless godly sand being pushed and whittled away by the celestial river, even if a heaven immortal were to fall into this formation, how long can he last against such a terrifying force? Wen Cheng was also emotional. If not for the old demon river Styx taking advantage of the geographical advantage to set up 2 formations, how could Chen Daoyu be in a difficult situation? Unfortunately, he has already matured. The Blood River formation and the Empty Demon formation have a firm foundation. Even if the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation borrows the power of the Eye of the Sea, it will not be able to shake its foundation within 7 days. After all, there is still a part of the Eye of the Sea that is borrowed by the Blood River formation. With just the part that Chen Daoyu has, he can only gain the upper hand, but it will not be able to break its foundation. At this moment, the divine sand formation was completely activated. The 72 types of godly sand, many of them blotting out the sky and the earth, while the few of them soundless, were all activated. The metamagnet godly sand, golden grain godly sand, formless godly sand, soul-dispersing godly sand, Leisure godly sand, Gale godly sand, Earth fiend godly sand, Dark een godly sand, Six desires godly sand, and white bone godly sand were all rolling and surging, surrounding the blood river formation. The yellow river of 9 bends 10,000 miles of sand, waves and winds from the ends of the world. Now, go straight to the Milky Way, to the morning glory and the Weaver Girl's house. Even though the 7 friends of Mountly, ascetic Duddha, and the young man of Heavenly Stem Mountain were just observing the formation, they were shocked by this change. Just the first layer of the metamagnet godly sand had such terrifying power. Now, with the 72 types of godly sand and the help of the 36 types of innate and acquired true water, it was truly a magnificent scene of the endless Milky Way in front of their eyes. The seniors of the righteous path and the overseas itinerant immortals and mighty figures were all shocked. They were secretly shocked by the unparalleled magical powers that Chun-Ong, one righteous and one demonic, had displayed. The overseas unorthodox sects that had not dispersed were all dazed and speechless when they saw this shocking power. They felt that their tongues were clumsy, unable to say even a fraction of the two's terrifying magical powers. The evil thoughts they had about Chun-Ong had long been thrown out of the Milky Way. Now, they could not wait to be afraid. How could they dare to have any evil thoughts? A silver light descended from the sky above the yellow river of 9 bends formation. The Tai star sand rushed into the blood river formation and broke a gap. Then, the 36 types of acquired true water expanded the gap. The first Yuan heavy water dispersed the dense blood clouds with great force. Then, the metamagnet godly sand and the gold-grinding godly sand grinded away the thousands of acres of blood clouds outside the blood river formation by 30%. Chun-Ong held the Heaven Life water gonfalon in his hand and presided over the yellow river of 9 bends formation. As the gonfalon waved, the true water and godly sand weaved in and out like dragons and snakes, sometimes attacking and sometimes probing, forcibly suppressing the blood river formation of river Styx to the point that it could not move. The primordial magnetic divine sand continued to grind. Under the friction of the magnetic force, each grain carried an invisible force of een thunder. When the endless divine sand was connected, it formed a layer of een thunder electric net. With the help of Chun-Ang's Samadhi true fire of refining devil and the true fire of the sun that could dry up the yang of heaven and earth, yin and yang combined to form a layer of interior thunder net out of thin air. Once the faceless heavenly demon in the diagram of gods and demons moved, the interior thunder net would be bombarded. How could the faceless heavenly demons, such as the Vajra demons and the white bone demons, withstand the attack of the true water and godly sand? Even the pure gold godly sand could not withstand the endless godly sand day and night, let alone the faceless heavenly demons. After a day and night, the blood river formation had retreated 100 miles, leaving only half of its core area. Chapter 5:16. Although Chun-Ong had already gained the upper hand, he could tell from the expressions of the 7 friends of Mount Li and the ascetic Duddha that the situation was still not optimistic. This was because although the great blood river matrix had shrunk to give up thousands of acres of land, the shrinking of its foundation actually made it more cohesive. If it only protected Chun-Ong, its power would only be greater. Chun-Ong only had 7 days, and the situation was not optimistic. A day had passed, but the number of wandering cultivators hiding in the distance had not decreased. Instead, they had increased. The wandering cultivators who had scattered out of fear of the old demon river Styx had returned to check on the situation after receiving a few messages from their good friends. If river Styx were to take root in the 4 seas, it would be a small matter for Mount Amay. However, for these wandering cultivators who had their roots in the sea, it was a disaster. These people had been killed by Mingi, and only a few of them had returned alive. However, there were many who had personally seen Mingi slaughter a sea of people and killed countless people from both the righteous and evil paths. They had learned their lesson and only dared to hide nearby. Therefore, other than a few seniors from the righteous path, there were still not many people present. Today, both sides battled. Even people like ascetic Buddha, who were close to ascension, were shocked. The wandering cultivators from the sea felt like they were in an illusion. They could not believe that this was a supernatural power possessed by a cultivator. However, they were right. Of the two people in the formation, one had the body of the supreme sky devil, and the other had the fruit of the primordial daffodil. They were no longer mortals. Just as the 7 friends of Mountly were worried about Chunong, a golden rainbow rose from the Yellow River formation of the 9 bends. It carried Chunong to face River Styx. Both sides were separated by 200 miles of the Blood River. Chunong smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist River Styx, we have fought many times, but we have never met. This is interesting." The overseas immortals who were hiding in the dark were shocked. They looked at Chunong in shock, wanting to see Chunong's face. It was only then that they realized that this was not the first time the two of them had fought. They secretly wondered who Chunong was to have such magical power to be able to fight against River Styx, a peerless devil and a ferocious person. It was not that they doubted Chunong's abilities. Although they had not seen the power of the Yellow River formation as clearly as the 7 friends of Mountly, they had seen some of its power. They knew that even if all the overseas immortals charged at it together, they would not be able to be easily killed by one of the two. However, River Styx's infamy was deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. In their hearts, he was already an unparalleled demon of the Azura world's level. The red lotus above the river of blood bloomed, and River Styx sat on the lotus platform. His eyes were half closed, and his gaze was awe-inspiring. Although most of his gaze was on Chunong, when he looked at the others from the corner of his eyes, it was like a cold and sharp sword. It was cold and inhuman. When it landed on the overseas itinerant cultivators, their hearts trembled in fear. Their bodies suddenly tensed up, and they did not dare to move. They were afraid that they would attract the attention of this unparalleled devil. Their swords came from hundreds of miles away, and Yuantu and Avicii took their lives. Fortunately, River Styx did not seem to pay too much attention to them. He smiled at Chunong and said, "In the past, I cultivated to the position of skyscraping demon by chance. I underestimated you and only spoke to you as a shadow. After that, you sealed my corporeal body, and I only had a bit of primordial spirit left to escape. You chased me for over 300,000 miles, and I was almost forced into a dead end. I was in a constant state of anxiety, and I did not dare to see you with my face. I only escaped in a bloody light. After that, I set up a formation to trap you, and I hid in the formation as well. I did not dare to face you until I trapped your corporeal body, and only then did I have equal mana. Now that I borrowed the disaster of killing, my mana has improved again, and I dare to meet you again. Come to think of it, this is really the first time we have met. Fellow Taoist is a genius. In the past, you were despicable, and it was just a moment of bad luck." Chunong laughed and replied and sighed, "It is a pity that we appreciate each other, but because of our opposing fates, we always have to go against each other. Today is the first time we meet, and we still have to fight to the death. Fellow Taoist trapped my corporeal body, and I trapped fellow Taoist's skyscraping demon body. This time, we have to fight to see who is stronger." River Styx suddenly suggested, "As long as fellow Taoist swears not to make things difficult for me, I will open up a path, and let fellow Taoist take my corporeal body. How about that?" His suggestion shocked the 7 friends of Mountly and ascetic Buddha. They were afraid that Chunong would agree to it just like that. There were no overnight grudges among cultivators. As long as it was not an enemy that blocked their path, or a mortal grudge, There was nothing they could not let go of. However, if Chun-Ong really made peace with River Styx, and he, the master of the Four Seas fate, would not make things difficult for River Styx, then among the overseas immortals, no one could stop that peerless demon. The young man from Heavenly Gon's sect was about to say something, but he was stopped by the ascetic monk. "Fellow Taoist, you don't have to do this. What fellow Taoist Chun does it need us to criticize him? If Chun Dao you let go of this grudge, it is reasonable. We cannot force him to do anything because of our personal opinions." Chun-Ong was silent for a long time. Not only did ascetic Buddha and the 7 friends of Mount Li secretly pay attention, even the overseas immortals who were hiding at the side were anxious. Unknowingly, they had already started to rely on Chun-Ong. Some of them saw him as a great support for the overseas immortals. This was because River Styx was fierce. Without Chun-Ang's protection, it was hard to say who would be the leader, and whether they could keep their lives was another matter. This was human nature, and it was also the reason for Chun-Ang's calculations. Without River Styx forcing him, there would be a lot of trouble if he wanted to take the hearts of the Four Seas immortals. Even if his mana was boundless, it would be hard for him to convince these people. However, now that he had River Styx, those who were not convinced could die. He was silent for a long time before he sighed. "Fellow Taoist River Styx, I appreciate your kindness. However, after all, our paths are different, and we cannot work together. I wish to open the eyes of the Four Seas and create all living beings. I cannot tolerate fellow Taoist creating the Four Seas, killing tribulation, and slaughtering fellow Taoists. In the end, we still have to talk about it with the sword." Behind Chun-Ong, the 12 primordial waterscape swords turned into sword gleams and hovered behind his head. 12 circles of water-colored sword gleams floated up and down, and he stepped on dozens of golden ships of creation. The waterscape sword gleams were restrained, and they were only about a foot long. Compared to the 2 ferocious demonic weapons beside River Styx that were spitting blood, they looked much less imposing. This caused the spectating immortals to panic. Only ascetic Buddha and a few others could see that the waterscape sword gleams were all-encompassing, vaguely transforming into the 12 heavens. They were not inferior to the 2 ferocious swords of Yuan-Tu and Avicii. The 2 people in the formation were already determined to kill. Once River Styx's sword gleams appeared, they were thousands of feet long, and their imposing manner was unparalleled. The sword gleams were sharp, and it was the best killing sword technique. With the Blood River formation as a cover, it really had unpredictable power. In comparison, Chun-Ang's 12 primordial waterscape swords used a sword formation to counter it. It was ingenious, and the sword gleams were simple and crude. It looked like he was at a disadvantage, but in reality, he had the upper hand. Moreover, the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation was unleashed once again. Countless divine sand penetrated through every opening, and it suppressed and whittled away the foundation of the Blood River formation. The small Blood Sea, which was 800 miles wide, was surrounded by the Milky Way. The 72 divine sand were like dragons and snakes, floating and unmoving in the Milky Way, strangling the gods, demons, and blood clouds and blood rivers. Chapter 5:17. The sword light of the 12 celestial water scenery sword trembled, transforming into a myriad of phenomena. River Styx sat in the middle of the formation, protected by the blood lotus formed by the river of blood formation. The Lianhua was born and died, withering and flourishing unpredictably. River Styx sat on the lotus platform, as though he was in a different world from Chun-Ong. Ordinary sword techniques would not be able to injure him. Even touching the corner of his clothes would be an insurmountable chasm. One had to have a sword technique that could traverse the 2 worlds and travel seamlessly in order to be worthy of battling with River Styx in the River of Blood formation. Among the spectators, only ascetic Buddha and the boy from Tianqian Mountain were qualified. The Taiching Mystic Door had the formless sword technique, which was the most superior sword technique of the Taiching Mystic Door. Ascetic Buddha was also proficient in the yin and yang dust formation to divide the two worlds, while the boy from Tianxian Mountain, Xun Lei, could traverse the two worlds. The 7 sons of Mount Lishan were slightly weaker. Qin Eng's sword light appeared, causing gods and ghosts to avoid him. However, his sword will seem to be there and not there. It was awe-inspiring, like the movement of the heavenly Tao, merciless and selfless. It seemed to have grasped the creation of the universe, moving freely between the two worlds. In an instant, he moved 71 times and cut down the 13 lianhua flowers protecting River Styx. Every time the 12 sword lights weakened the red lotus, the river of 9 bends yellow river formation would invade and whittle away at the foundation of the river of blood formation. River Styx did not panic and continued to deal with the attacks calmly. His 2 swords spun and the blood lotuses bloomed under his feet, forming a world of their own. His movements were illusory and dreamy, leaving no traces. His sword technique seemed to have been tempered through countless killings. It seemed to rise from the sea of blood, River Styx. Just by looking at the sword light, there was a merciless smell of blood. Even if ascetic Buddha and the others scratched their heads, they would never have guessed that they were the same person just by looking at their sword technique. However, Chen Ong and River Styx came from the same source. Even though their paths of swordsmanship were different, they had both reached the pinnacle, and it was difficult to tell who was better. However, Qin Eng's 12 Moons Waterscape swords had 12 flying swords that formed their own formation. Compared to River Styx's dual swords, he had a slight advantage. Even though it was only a minor advantage, at their level of swordsmanship, they could use this advantage to gain the upper hand. Both parties' swordsmanship had been thoroughly tempered. It was as natural as an antelope hanging its horns. There were no flaws at all. It was impossible for ordinary cultivators to fight with swords by relying on ingenious ideas, or to suddenly cast spells and sneak attacks. They could only rely on the foundation of their swordsmanship. The onlookers broke out in cold sweat and trembled in fear. Ascetic Buddha knew that if they were only competing in swordsmanship, he would lose in at most 40 rounds. The 7 friends of Mount Lishan broke out in cold sweat. If they were to fight against River Styx, Yuan-Tu, or Avicii, they would probably die in 7 rounds. There was no need to mention the other rogue immortals from overseas. They were all trash who could not even last 1 round. At this moment, even the most conservative and xenophobic rogue immortals from overseas were secretly praying for Chen Ong to win. If no one stopped River Styx, the rogue immortals from the 4 seas would not be able to do anything to River Styx. If he was allowed to roam the overseas, he would probably kill all the cultivators from the 4 seas. Just as River Styx was at a disadvantage due to his dual swords, 6 lianhua flowers were slashed by Chen Ong, and he even found an opening to enter the celestial demon diagram and kill 2 celestials and demons on it. Seeing that the situation was turning for the better, River Styx suddenly smiled. "Fellow cultivator, you are relying on the advantage of your weapons. Don't blame River Styx for borrowing the formation." As soon as he said this, he turned his body and transformed into a primordial spirit of the Blood River. It merged with the 2 sword gleams and displayed the most advanced primordial spirit sword kinesis technique. Previously, when he controlled Yuan-Tu and Avicii, he only relied on the spirituality of the 2 swords to move according to his will. However, he was controlling them from a distance after all. Even though the spirituality of the man and the swords were one and his senses were fast, his reactions were slow and stiff. Now that his primordial spirit was attached to the swords, the sword gleams were like his limbs and body. When he controlled them again, his reactions were extremely fast, and he could also make some subtle changes. However, the disadvantage was that with the primordial spirit attached to the swords, there were many dangers in sword fights. Life and death were often decided in an instant. If one was not careful, there would be no room for recovery. Soon, River Styx regained the upper hand and suppressed Chen Eng's sword gleams to within 100 miles. The primordial spirit sword kinesis technique moved around the blood river matrix, making it even more unpredictable. He could teleport with just a thought. That way, he could use the matrix to control the distance and teleport at will to gain an advantage. Ascetic Buddha observed for a while and sighed. River Styx's swordsmanship, primordial spirit, and matrix are one and the same. He is like a heavenly demon. Even though Chen Daoyou's techniques are not any weaker than River Styx's, one of them is defending while the other is attacking. They will have to go deep into the two great matrices that River Styx has set up to fight him. If they stay in the big matrices and slowly suppress him, it will be fine. Unfortunately, they don't have enough time. If Chen Daoyou's body is destroyed, the overseas Taoism will be weakened and the great tribulation of deities will be even more tragic. Yuan Turtle Island, Tian Qian Mountain, even Xiankong Island's ancestor Xiankong, and Copper Coconut Island's esteemed Tianqi will all be in danger. Fellow Taoist Chen is the only one who controls the fate of the sea. If he's here, he'll be able to stabilize the four seas. If he's defeated, even the 6 freaks of the universe and the other secluded cultivators won't be able to resist Mingi. Unless Mount Amei takes action. However, Mount Amei's foundation is in the center of Sichuan. We can't take care of the front and the back. It will be very difficult to suppress this demon. At this point, even a master like ascetic Buddha could not help but sigh. During the Great Tribulation, the path of Tao would be very difficult. When River Styx killed Xianyuan Old Monster, ascetic Buddha still had some confidence. He was not afraid of River Styx. Now that he saw how powerful the formation was, he knew that this demon was only a little bit away from being invincible. He did not dare to boast that he could subdue this demon. Just as ascetic Buddha was about to persuade the others to help Chen Ong subdue River Styx, he suddenly received a telepathic message. It was Chen Ong warning them, retreat 100 miles away. This demon is very fierce. If we don't take the risk of harming 1,000 miles, it will be difficult to subdue him. Ascetic Buddha was a person who knew the severity of the situation. If River Styx was allowed to act recklessly, the harm would be greater than harming 1,000 miles. Knowing that Chen Ong was going to use a ruthless method, they released their treasures to protect the sea. The Yellow River of Nine Bends formation also changed automatically, trapping the 2 people who were fighting inside. A spot of golden light shone above the clouds. Chen Ong suddenly became one with his sword and sliced through the clouds. A strange warship bathed in the sun's true fire appeared majestically. Its keel was thousands of miles long, and its entire body was covered in dragon scales. Both sides of its ribs were extremely bright, as if it was formed by endless golden sun's true fire. It slowly spread out as if it had substance. With a gentle wave, it split open the eye of the sea below, revealing the rocky stratum that was thousands of miles deep. As Chen Ong entered the golden warship, the giant warship flapped its wings and turned into a magnificent golden light. It plunged into the clouds. The 2 wings of the sun god's fire intertwined and turned into a circle of golden light that was tens of thousands of miles long. It was formed by endless sun's true fire, and it cut the blood river in half. Even someone like River Styx had to avoid the sharp edge and move away from the 2 giant golden wings. Chapter 518. This turn of events really shocked the onlookers. Everyone was awestruck by the power of this giant warship. In Mount Shu, the magical treasures and flying swords were small and exquisite. The usage of natural treasures was limited. Who would dare to use so many essences of 5 metals and 10,000-year-old cold iron to create such a magnificent treasure? This kind of magical treasure of war should not exist in a swordsman world. Only in a civilized world where everyone cultivated and everyone was like a dragon would there be such a killing and formation-breaking treasure. Only an anomaly such as Chen Ong, who had seen too many planet-destroying warships the size of planets in the technological universe and technological weapons that could vaporize stars, would have the inspiration to craft such a piece of magical equipment. Not to mention ascetic Buddha and the other independent immortals from overseas who were watching the battle were all terrified. Their natural instincts, which were suppressed by their primordial spirits, showed their ugly expressions. For the first time, they felt that as independent immortals who sought Tao outside of the world, they were as insignificant as ants. The only thing that could vaguely describe them was the power of heaven. Such a method was really like the power of heaven. Ascetic Buddha was still fine. After all, he was not as petty as these independent immortals. Ancestor Xiankong caused an earthquake in the North Pole, Mount Amei opened a mansion, Chen Ong opened a volcanic sea eye on Moon Island, and later on, the pond of elusive ripples and the realm of light of extraterrestrial Divine Mountain. The cultivators in this world did not lack powerful methods to create stars and move mountains and fill seas. Therefore, they only felt that Chen Ang's magical treasure was powerful and could restrain formations. He was not as weak as those unknowledgeable cultivators. Under the attack of this formation-breaking treasure, the foundation of River Styx's 2 formations was shaken. Under the erosion of the Yellow River formation of 9 bends, the formation became weaker and weaker. It could only take root on 2 barren reefs and change its formation into a void. It shed the original form of a killing formation and revealed the illusory formation to barely hold on. River Styx was restrained by Chen Ong and could not use any method. It could only watch the giant warship show its power. Divine light gathered on the 2 divine fire wings of the sun and tightened on the side of the golden ship, as if it was plated with a layer of golden light. The divine thunderball of yin and yang creation at the core of the golden ship was repeatedly activated by Chen Ang's supernatural power. Suddenly, a great force was generated, absorbing endless divine thunder from the void. The thunder was converted into magnetic force by the divine thunderball of yin and yang creation, magnetic divine light, shining under the eye of the sea. The eye of the sea was the weakest part of the Earth's crust. Under the illumination of the divine light of magnetic divine light, the underground magnetic force was absorbed. The golden ship exerted its power and shook, opening a hole in the Earth's crust and sucking out the Xian Yin Taiyang fire. The planet of Shushan was a mass of Taiyang fire and Xian Yin Taiyang fire. Because of the attraction of yin and yang, the planet rotated rapidly all day long. It also produced a layer of magnetic genuine qi and 13 layers of the ancient Earth's crust to keep the Earth safe. According to the model constructed by Chen Ong, the planet in the land of Shushan was a strange celestial body that looked like a Dyson sphere. The center was the Taiyang fire and Xian Yin fire that was like a star. The outer layer was suspended by the magnetic genuine qi and wrapped around the Taiyang fire to form mountains and rivers. Therefore, most of the calamities in this world were the eruptions of underground volcanoes. This was because the mortals in the land were standing on a star that was much smaller than the sun. If the Taiyang fire was triggered, it would really have the power to destroy the world. The most powerful method of the Golden Ship of Fate was to use the divine light of magnetic divine light to open up a passage to the Xian Yin poison fire and suck out the Taiyang fire. Only Chen Ong dared to use such a method. He had extinguished the Taiyang fire and suppressed the underground volcanoes several times. His methods were skillful and superb, which was why he had the courage to trigger the Taiyang fire to destroy the world. Once the Xian Yin poison fire appeared in the eye of the sea, it immediately broke through the foundation of the Blood River formation. Even with the help of the Empty Demon formation, it was difficult for the Blood River formation to defend against this heavenly power. The poisonous fire and raging flames rushed into the sky, melting rocks and flowing gold. The vast ocean turned into boiling water. Then, the chi of the previous heavens was triggered, and the true fire of the sun descended to help. The sea and sky were filled with raging flames. If not for the Yellow River formation of 9 bends to guide and seal off the area, all living things within a radius of 1,000 miles would not be spared. The whole world would be affected, and earthquakes would be a disaster everywhere. Hot air rose and spread throughout the universe. The boiling water overflowed, and many places connected to the sea were affected. The extreme heat spread and plagues spread. Grass and trees withered, and birds and beasts disappeared. It was unknown how many living things would be buried in it. Even so, other than a cold spring in the eye of the sea, the entire Earth's crust sea was on the verge of collapse. River Styx kept the 2 big formation maps and wrapped them around himself. Looking at the endless earth fire boiling under his feet, he sighed helplessly. Friend, you are very capable and decisive. Good magic treasures, good supernatural powers. I, River Styx, am really impressed. Since you are able to use such a method, I'm sure you can eliminate this disaster and rebuild the eye of the sea. Not only will you not be affected by this endless karma, but you can also turn disaster into good fortune. It's not that my mana and cultivation are not as good as yours, it's just that I'm not as good as the power of heaven and earth. Your path of creation is really admirable. Respect, respect. After saying that, he activated the Blood River formation map with all his might. From the cold spring in the eye of the sea, he took out a corporeal body with horns and turned into a ray of blood light. He left a message. Today we lost our corporeal bodies and fought for a while. I've lost. In the future, with our corporeal bodies, we will definitely fight with you for a while. Ascetic Buddha knew that it was impossible to stop River Styx. Moreover, now that he had won a small victory, the most important thing now was to eliminate the earth fire and turn disaster into good fortune. Otherwise, if the earth fire were to spread, it would probably create endless karma. Therefore, it was reasonable that Chen Ong did not chase after it. Chen Ong leaped onto the golden ship and stayed on top of the sea of fire. Looking into the distance, he saw a scene of devastation. He could not help but sigh. Such a Pyrrhic victory, I wonder if it's a blessing or a disaster? Ascetic Buddha comforted him. Friend, you controlled the earth fire and did not release it. As long as you try your best to repair it, there will be no future trouble. Chen Ong naturally knew about this. Since he dared to trigger the earth fire, not only could he win over Mount Ame's favor, he could also use it to rebuild the eye of the sea and truly open the 4 seas. However, this method could not be discussed with ascetic Buddha. As soon as he said this, he controlled the golden ship and cut off the passage of the earth fire. He triggered the underground primordial magnetism to repair the stratum. He refined the 2 stratum closest to the surface of the 13 stratum into a white jade that could soothe water and fire. After being refined by the Xianyin poisonous fire, the solar real fire, the Tianyi real water, the Xianming real water and the other 5 types of real water, it almost became a kind of precious jade that was laid under the eye of the sea. Then, he melted the cold spring and obtained a pure and cold spiritual spring that connected the entire eye of the sea and the underwater palace. The 9 bends Yellow River formation drew in endless seawater to eliminate the boiling Tai fire. Then, the golden ship of fate collected the remaining rootless fire and drew in the chi of 9 heavens to refine the eye of the sea. Then, when the eye of the sea was hit by the earth fire and almost collapsed, it broke the 9 bends Yellow River formation and refined it into the eye of the sea. The cold spring in the eye of the sea and the remaining underground fire veins complemented each other, turning the eye of the sea that had expanded several times into a blessed land for living beings. Finally, Chen Ong placed the 9-layer Pearl Palace Jade Palace in his sleeve into the beautiful jade stratum. He guided the cold spring fire veins to refine it and guided the earth veins and water veins. Then, he used the 9 bends Yellow River formation to gather the spiritual chi of the 4 seas to nourish countless celestial trees, flowers and grasses, as well as countless precious elixirs. In this way, it took a month of effort to finish planting the countless rare jade herbs that Chen Ong had collected overseas. At this time, the 9-layer immortal abode was deep in the crust of the eye of the sea, nourished by the cold spring fire veins. Chen Ong transplanted more than 10 beautiful springs and countless rare elixirs. Then, there were the treasures brought to the ground by the rolling Tai fire nearby, the mineral veins at the bottom of the sea, and the 9 bends Yellow River Formation swallowed endless seawater, creating countless living beings in the South Sea. It had become an immortal abode that was better than the Purple Cloud Palace and the Moon Island. Chapter 519. River Styx turned into a bloody rainbow and flew across tens of thousands of nautical miles in an instant. When he was sure that no one could follow him, he slowed down and released the Blood River Formation into a bloody cloud. He rode the bloody cloud and flew away. Only then did he have time to take out Xianyuan the Great's primordial spirit blood bead and slowly permeated it with the supernatural power of the Blood River. He flipped through the old monster's memories. Other than the Book of Diabolism, which he kept as the foundation of his own accumulation, he only skimmed through the other things of his adulthood. He focused on the memories of the last 100 years, especially the memory of obtaining the Blood God Sutra. From Xianyuan the Great's memory, Chen Ong learned that the origin of the Blood God Sutra was not simple. When Xianyuan the Great went to West Kunlun to visit a friend, he befriended a mysterious person and was taught a part of the Blood God Sutra. He snuck into the person's cave and stole the rest. Even in Xianyuan Fuang's memory, this fellow of the demonic sect was quite mysterious. Apart from knowing his name and appearance, he didn't even know where he came from. Chen Ong extracted that person's information from his memory and calculated with his primordial spirit. As expected, it was also chaotic. This seemingly worthless information actually revealed a lot. For existences like the main gods, their methods were nothing more than people succeeding. Those who had left the samsara realm would not be able to adapt to changes. Their essence was as profound and grand as the laws of the world. Because of this, they lacked the intelligence of the essence of living beings. Like the heavenly Tao above and artificial intelligence below, they were all existences that relied on the internal Luo Ji rules to operate. Therefore, the Lord needed the samsara travelers and the help of the samsara travelers to be considered alive. Otherwise, they would be like dead things and could not survive and grow. The Lord was like heaven and earth. They still needed the samsara travelers to add the spirituality of humans to be considered alive. At present, the Lord's invasion of the Shushan world was still shallow. They could barely hide the mysteries of heaven. The samsara travelers also had many scruples in their actions. They did not dare to trigger the reaction of the net of karma and attract the attention of the spiritual immortal realm. Chen Ong could imagine how the Lord would restrict the samsara travelers who entered this world. It was nothing more than punishment and threats of obliteration. River Styx dispersed the trigram in her primordial spirit and looked toward the Middle Earth in the north. She smiled and said, "Is it in West Kunlun? It's a gathering place for people from the Devil's Path and Evil Sect. It's close to Mount Ame, but we can avoid direct contact. It's a good place." Currently, Chen Ang's main body still needed to guard the Eye of the Sea and calm the fate of the Four Seas. He could not be moved easily, and it was more convenient for River Styx to do things. Thus, he was sent to the great Ming dynasty of the Central Plains to search for the traces left behind by the chief deity. He had already calculated that the chief deity did not intend to wait until the start of the plot, when the good and the evil fought at Xiun Temple to deepen their encroachment. Instead, he wanted to directly interfere with the changes in the dragon veins of the great Ming dynasty. He wanted to strengthen his influence on this world from the perspective of humanity. Some people said that the dragon aura would conceal the karma, making it even more difficult to detect it. The karma of the dragon court in the human world was the most complicated, and there was also the dragon aura to suppress the karma. It was a good opportunity for the Lord. It certainly wanted to support the Manchurian Qing, to replace the Great Ming, to seize the opportunity to mix with the people of humanity, to erode this world. How dare the Tarzan call himself the mandate of heaven when he represents the Han dynasty? It is not easy for the righteous immortal Chen to make a move, but I, River Styx, have no scruples. There will always be arrogant people who presume that the result will be predetermined. I will kill him for 100,000 wild boar skins. I want to see what the chief deity will do to save the Great Ming. River Styx sneered. The Tarzan's usurpation of the Han dynasty was an extremely coincidental matter. If Chern Ong had not interfered, the chief deity might have taken advantage of the situation and made it happen. However, if the Tarzans had the mandate of heaven and were supported by all sides, it would be a joke. Not to mention that Mount Amei had never accepted barbarians, like the drunken Taoist. They did not even accept traitors who defected to the Manchurian Qing. Each of them claimed to have lost their country. In the future, their third-generation disciples, the 5 dwarves of eastern Sichuan, managed the human world's industry. It was also the base camp of the anti-Qing forces. There were countless disciples who killed officials and rebelled. If it was not for the law of karma, where cultivators killed mortals, and the sword immortals of Mount Amei pursued immortality more than anything else, the Manchurian Qing would have been overturned a long time ago. In the end, the Manchurian Qing dynasty suppressed Taoism and Buddhism and supported the Tibetan Lamas. The so-called mandate of heaven was just a joke. The orthodox Buddhism of the Han dynasty, such as Zun Sheng and Bai Mei, did not mix with the Manchurian Qing. Instead, it was the Tantric sect of heresy and the evil Buddhas who wanted to borrow the power of orthodoxy to spread their faith to the Han dynasty of the Central Plains. That was why the living Buddhas came down to the highlands to help the Manchurian Qing. They did it for their own benefit. Mount Amei, on the other hand, had always been the mainstay of eradicating these heresy and evil Buddhas. They had killed countless foreign monks and devils. Therefore, those who needed the river Styx to kill were probably the heresy and evil Buddhas who came down from West Kunlun and the great snow mountain of the highlands. The orthodox Buddhism of Buddhism and the most difficult old ball donkeys were all from the Han Zen sect, the Pure Land sect, and the Vinaya sect. On the other hand, the heresy and Tantric sect of heresy were all rooted in the base camp of the Devil Path in West Kunlun. It was likely that as soon as they removed their Devil Path instruments, blood and souls, they would sit up and become living Buddhas. It was hard to say how many of those lamas were actually the puppets of the old devils living in seclusion in West Kunlun. Fortunately, Tubo was a country of serfs and slaves. The lamas and nobles would kill and plunder the slaves. They would skin their slaves and dig out their hearts at the slightest provocation. There were very few righteous mystic Dor who would come to uphold justice. It was truly the most suitable place for the Devil Path to grow. The old devil of Taiching Mountain, the deities and devils of Red Body sect, and a group of devil disciples used their blood and souls to refine their treasures. They were also tortured to the point of extreme resentment. The few outer Tao protectors of the Bon sect and Tantric sect, and the likes of Mahakala are also very familiar to me. They seem to be 90% similar to the 7 emotions and 6 desires deities and devils in the celestial demon diagram. It's hard to say whether it was the Buddha who subdued the heresy or the heresy who went public through a backdoor. Old Man Sheepy seemed to have switched to Buddhism in the end. Even now, his attainments in Buddhism are not shallow. I think in his previous life, he seemed to have reincarnated as a famous person. Lianhua was born. If he was really Old Man Sheepy's previous life, then the legend of the ancestor of Tantric sect, Lianhua, being born to subdue the Bon sect's heretics is really interesting. During the Dharma ending period there were my descendants. They wore your kasaya and spoiled your Dharma. In the name of monks they walked the devil path. This seems to be the source of Old Man Sheepy's orthodoxy, the Azura Devil King Buoshuan's great wish. If it's really as I think, in the end, Old Man Sheepy was sent to Buddhism. Maybe it was the great wish of the Azura Devil Path. River Styx laughed coldly. He had secretly calculated and confirmed many of his guesses. However, the old devils of West Kunlun had extraordinary means. After so many years of operation, they had covered up their tracks so well that not even a drop of water could leak out. He really could not pry into the arrangements of those people without much effort. However, no matter what, if it was said that the outer Tao Buddhism born from West Kunlun Devil Daozu's court was so pure and flawless, Chen Ong would not believe even a single one of his toes. It was just that how many of them were devils who went public through a back door, or whether the entire sect was just the other side of the devil path was another matter.